Digital divide in focus as World Telecommunication Day marked globally. Nepal pushes 4G expansion in remote Himalayan and rural regions. Nepal government moves to fast-track approval of 8 ordinances in Parliament, both upper and lower houses to review emergency legislative agenda. BP highway reconstruction accelerates after 2024 flood. Devastation. Japan-assisted project aims to transform route. WHO declares Ebola outbreak in DR Congo a global health emergency concern. Health officials warn of potential regional spread. Pakistan holds talks in Tehran amid renewed Iran-US diplomatic stalemate. Talks dwell on border trade and regional stability. And North Korean women footballers arrive in South Korea after 8-year gap. Asian Champions League clash set amid limited interaction. Good evening, I'm Bijata Bhandari and this is NTV World Primetime News. We're coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Elsewhere it is 13:15 in London, 22:15 in Tokyo and just after midnight in Sydney. Now the news in detail. World Telecommunication and Information Society Day is being observed globally today on May 17th, with events highlighting the role of Internet, information and communication technology in driving social and economic development. The day, established in 1969, also commemorates the founding of the International Telecommunication Union and the signing of the first International Telegraph Convention in 1865. It is aimed at reducing the global digital divide. In Nepal, the government is marking the occasion by highlighting efforts to expand digital connectivity in remote and mountainous regions. Nepal Telecom has recently extended 4G services to high-altitude and hard-to-reach areas, including Lan in Dolpa district at around 3,900 meters above sea level, as well as Khunsa in Taplejung. Authorities say further expansion is underway in areas such as the Barimalika region of Bajura and near the Everest Base Camp, as part of a broader push to ensure nationwide access to reliable communication services. The Nepal government is preparing to obtain parliamentary approval for all 8 ordinances introduced earlier by presenting them in the upper house of the federal parliament. The ordinances are scheduled to be tabled during the meeting of the National Assembly on May 21. At the same time, the government is also making preparations to present the ordinances in the lower house through an emergency agenda. Sabika Shrestha brings a report.
The 8 ordinances will be presented in the National Assembly meeting scheduled for May 21 for the endorsement. In the meantime, preparations are underway to present these ordinances in the budget session of the House of Representatives as well through an emergency agenda. The lower house is slated to start its session on May 18th and the set agenda for May 18, 19 and 20 includes discussions and question-answer sessions on the government's policies and programs. It is planned to endorse these ordinances by May 21 first. On May 21, there is an agenda to present a proposal for consideration of the National Forensic Science Laboratory Establishment Bill 2081 as well as the Alternative Development Finance Mobilization Bill 2082, and on May 26, there is a schedule for clause-wise discussion on the Science Laboratory Bill. Similarly, in the House of Representatives meeting on May 27, the Economic Survey for the fiscal year 2026-27 will be presented. On the same day, there is also an agenda to present a proposal for consideration of the Film Bill 2081.
राष्ट्रिय सभाबाट यो बीचमा जुन 19औं र 20औं अधिवेशनबाट पारित भएका विधेयकहरूलाई पनि यही बीचमा समावेश गरेर अघि बढाउने छ र अध्यादेशको सवालमा चाहिँ अहिले कार्यतालिकामा प्रतिनिधि सभाले जुन पहिलो बैठकमा प्रस्तुत भएका जुन जति पनि अध्यादेशहरू छन् 8 वटा त्यसलाई कुन दिन त्यसलाई समावेश गर्ने भन्ने यो टुङ्गो गरेर चाहिँ अहिले कार्यतालिका प्रकाशन गरेको देखिदैन तर सदनको त्यो बिजनेसको लोड हेरेर र सम्बन्धित मन्त्रीसँग समन्वय गरेर यही बीचमा यो सायद 15 गते अगावै यो जुन अध्यादेशहरूलाई पनि टुङ्गोमा लग्ने छ.
The Parliament Secretariat has made public legislative work scheduled up to mid-June with the federal budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2026-27 set to be announced on May 29. As per the schedule, the Finance Minister is slated to present the annual revenue and expenditure estimates in a joint session of the Federal Parliament as constitutionally mandated. Parliament meetings before the budget announcement will focus on discussions related to pre-budget preparations, government policies, and pending legislative business. According to this published schedule, discussions on various topics of the upcoming fiscal year's budget will begin from June 1st. The 0 hour of Parliament has been kept intact for expressing views on contemporary issues. The Parliament Secretariat also has stated that emergency time may also be provided depending on the seriousness of the subject matter. Even if not included in the agenda, time will be provided if requested by the leader of the opposition parties, former Prime Minister and former speakers. Sabika Shrestha with camera person Dhurba Thapa reporting for NTV World.
The BP Highway, a major road connecting eastern Nepal with the capital, is being rapidly rebuilt after severe floods and landslides in 2024, which destroyed large sections of the route. Travelers along the highway between Dhulikhel and Bardibas continue to face difficult conditions, including dust, mud and landslide risk, particularly as the monsoon season approaches. Reconstruction is currently focused on the 25-kilometer Barkhekola-Bhakundebesi section, where authorities are upgrading the road into a stronger double-lane highway designed to withstand future disasters. Part of the project is being supported by the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Officials say construction progress has reached around 30% in several sections, with engineers using modern slope stabilization and retaining wall systems to improve safety. Full paving of the highway is scheduled for completion by 2027, although officials warn that land disputes and infrastructure delays could still affect the timeline. Nepal's Division for Meteorology and Hydrology says the country is currently under the influence of western and local wind systems, affecting weather conditions across multiple regions. Rainfall has already been reported in parts of Gandaki, Bagmati and Koshi provinces. Forecasters warn of moderate rain accompanied by thunder and lightning in several hilly and mountainous areas, particularly in Koshi, Bagmati, Gandaki and Karnali provinces. Authorities have also cautioned that strong winds or gales may occur in the Tarai plains of Madhesh and Koshi provinces, urging residents to remain alert. Meanwhile, parts of Sudur Paschim and Lumini provinces are expected to experience a rise in temperatures despite the unsettled weather elsewhere. Time now for a short break. We shall be back with more updates. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News. Now the remaining updates. The CPN Unified Marxist-Leninist, one of Nepal's major political parties, today marked the 33rd Madan Ashrit Memorial Day with a program in Kathmandu. The annual observance honors two influential leaders of Nepal's communist movement, Madan Bhandari, the then party general secretary, and Jibraz Ashrit, who died in a jeep accident in 1993 when their vehicle fell into the Trishuli River in central Nepal. Party leaders and supporters gathered at the UML headquarters to pay tribute and reflect on their political legacy, which helped shape Nepal's modern multi-party democratic framework after the end of absolute monarchy. Senior leaders, including former President Vidya Devi Bhandari, attended the event along with top party officials. Speakers at the program called for renewed unity and self-reflection within the party, with leaders urging to regain public trust and strengthen democratic values as Nepal's political landscape continues to evolve. Nepali Congress President Gagan Kumar Thapa has said he is ready to do everything possible within the party's statute to strengthen unity in the organization. Speaking at an interaction organized by the Democratic Thought Society in Kathmandu on Sunday, Thapa stressed the need to move forward by including leaders elected through the party's 14th General Convention. He added that efforts would be made to ensure the upcoming 15th General Convention is fair and impartial. Thapa also said that party decisions would not be influenced by whether leaders participated in the Special General Convention. His remarks come amid ongoing internal discussions within Nepal's largest democratic party on organizational unity and future leadership direction. Nepal marked the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia 2026 with calls for greater equality, inclusion and respect for sexual and gender minorities. The annual observance commemorates the decision by the World Health Organization to remove homosexuality from its list of mental disorders, recognizing it as a natural aspect of human diversity. The day is now observed globally to promote the rights and dignity of the LGBTQ+ communities. An event organized in Kathmandu by Mitini Nepal brought together hundreds of advocates and supporters from across the country. Speaking at the program, Nepal's Minister for Women, Children and Senior Citizens, Sita Nepal Badi, said the government is committed to strengthening the rights and welfare of gender and sexual minorities through future policies and programs. She also urged society to treat LGBTQ+ individuals with respect and compassion rather than prejudice. Officials and human rights advocates at the event stressed the importance of enforcing laws against discrimination and ensuring equal treatment for LGBTQ+ people in society. Speakers noted that while Nepal has made progress in recognizing LGBTQ+ rights, many members of the community still face social challenges and discrimination. The program also featured the launch of a photo-based publication highlighting the experiences, struggles, identities and aspirations of LGBTQ+ individuals in Nepal. In Nepal's Humla district, residents say obtaining a national identity card has become a major financial and logistical burden rather than a simple administrative process. Thousands of people in the district's southern rural municipalities rely on the card to access banking services, social security payments, and other government services. Although many residents completed registration during a free government enrollment campaign last year, they still have not received their physical cards or identification numbers. To collect the documents, residents must travel to the district headquarters in Simkot, a journey that can require days of walking or costly transport through mountainous terrain. Locals say a round trip can cost up to 20,000 Nepalese rupees, a significant expense in one of the country's most isolated regions. Elderly people, persons with disabilities and low-income families are reported to be the hardest hit, with many struggling to access essential public services without the identification cards. A special month in the Hindu lunar calendar known as Adhik Mas or the Purushottam month began in Nepal on Sunday, prompting religious observances and festivals across the country. The sacred period, which occurs roughly every 32 months to align the lunar and solar calendars, is considered highly significant in Hindu tradition and will continue until mid-June, according to Nepal's official calendar committee. A major religious fair has started at the Machenarayan temple on the outskirts of Kathmandu, where devotees are gathering for prayers, ritual bathing and religious recitations. The tradition of holding special worship ceremonies at the temple during Adhik Mas dates back to the Malla era, which ruled parts of the Kathmandu Valley for centuries. Hindu devotees believe that visiting the temple, offering prayers to Lord Vishnu, and making charitable donations during this period brings spiritual merit and the fulfillment of wishes. Religious scholars describe Adhik Mas as a time for spiritual reflection, prayer, meditation and fasting. However, major life events such as weddings, housewarming ceremonies and new construction projects are traditionally avoided during the month, as they are considered inauspicious under Hindu customs. Time again for a short break. We will see you at the other side with international news. The World Health Organization has declared an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo a public health emergency of international concern. The agency said the outbreak in DR Congo's eastern Ituri province, which has seen around 246 suspected cases and 80 deaths reported, does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency. But it warned it could potentially be a much larger outbreak than what is currently being detected and reported, with significant risk of local and regional spread. The current strain of Ebola is caused by the Bundibugyo virus, the health agency said, for which there are no approved drugs or vaccines. Early symptoms include fever, muscle pain, fatigue, headache and sore throat, and are followed by vomiting, diarrhea, a rash and bleeding. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi met his Iranian counterpart Eskandar Momeni in Tehran on Saturday as he reached Tehran for an official visit to facilitate stalled peace negotiations between the United States and Iran. Islamabad continues diplomatic efforts to help ease tensions surrounding the ongoing Iran-US conflict and disruptions linked to the Strait of Hormuz blockade. Iranian state media said the two discussed bilateral relations, including joint measures to facilitate border trade, transit and the exchange of goods between the neighboring countries. While a fragile ceasefire announced on April 8 remains in place, negotiations between Washington and Tehran have largely stalled following a first round of direct talks in Islamabad, with disputes over Iran's uranium enrichment program and regional security continuing to hamper the progress. Meanwhile, as the Middle East conflict threatens to disrupt its growing economy, India is scrambling to salvage its sinking currency as surging oil prices linked to the escalating conflict. The Indian rupee has dropped more than 5% since the crisis erupted in February, extending losses seen throughout 2025 and making it Asia's worst performing major currency so far in 2026. The sharp rise in global crude prices has increased India's import bill, putting heavy pressure on foreign exchange reserves and fueling concerns over inflation, trade deficits, and economic stability. It is warned that prolonged tensions in the Middle East could further weaken the rupee, raise fuel and transportation costs, and complicate efforts by India's central bank to stabilize the economy while maintaining growth momentum. 3 people were killed overnight in a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack on the Moscow region, according to the Russian officials. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said 12 people were injured in strikes on a city oil refinery. Russia's military said 556 drones were intercepted. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the strikes were an entirely justified response to deadly Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities. Earlier this week, a massive Russian drone and missile attack killed 24 people in Kyiv. The first widespread heavy rainfall China has experienced this year has triggered emergency responses across the country. The National Meteorological Center (NMC) said the heavy rain is set to intensify throughout Sunday. Level 4 flood control emergency responses were activated at 12 on Saturday for central China's Hubei province and the southwestern Chongqing municipality, while responses at the same level were maintained for the southern province of Guangdong and the southwestern province of Guizhou. Local authorities immediately launched emergency responses, including hazard inspections and road obstacle clearance. Swift responses were launched to clear debris and reopen roads, and traffic has started flowing again. More from the international front and sports news coming up after the short break. A driver with a reported history of mental health problems struck pedestrians and cyclists in the northern Italian city of Modena, injuring 8 people, 4 of them seriously. It is reported a car speeding into a crowded city center street before hitting multiple people. Emergency services rushed to the scene and transported the injured to nearby hospitals for treatment. Police said the incident is under investigation and the driver has been taken into custody. Officials are examining the circumstances leading up to the crash, including the suspect's medical background and the possible intent. Humanoid robots dressed as Buddhist monks took part in the Lotus Lantern Festival in Seoul, joining thousands of participants in the annual celebrations honoring Lord Buddha's birthday. The robots, designed to resemble traditional monks, marched alongside human participants, carrying lanterns, blending modern technology with centuries-old cultural and religious traditions. Their appearance drew strong public curiosity and added a futuristic element to the otherwise traditional procession. The illuminated parade featured colorful lantern displays, temple groups, and cultural performances, with large crowds lining the streets to witness the spectacle. Attendees described the event as both symbolic and innovative, with the combination of human devotion and artificial intelligence highlighting Korea's growing role in merging culture with technology. Dogs dressed in Japan and Argentina football shirts joined the owners on a runway in Singapore as sportswear brand Adidas unveiled its first ever pet apparel collection at the Fur Kids Fiesta event. The showcase featured pet models walking alongside their owners, wearing miniature versions of international football jerseys as part of a promotional campaign ahead of global football events. Organizers said the event aimed to highlight the growing trend of pet fashion and lifestyle branding. The event drew attention from pet lovers and industry watchers, blending entertainment, fashion marketing, and the expanding global pet accessories market into a single runway presentation. Those were the international updates. Now we move to sports. The fourth edition of the Nepal Super League NSL is set to kick off on September 5, marking a new chapter in Nepal's top-tier franchise football competition. Organizers have announced a revamped format for this season, introducing a home and away system to increase competitiveness and fan engagement across the country. The league will also expand its participation, with the number of teams expected to rise from the previous edition to between 10 and 12 clubs. Officials say the changes aim to strengthen the league structure and improve the overall quality of domestic football. The NSL has quickly become Nepal's premier football tournament since its launch, attracting growing attention from fans and stakeholders. In other sports news, North Korean women's football team landed in South Korea on Sunday, marking the first visit by a sports team from the isolated country to a southern neighbor in 8 years to play in the Asian Champions League semi-finals. Naegohyang Women's FC, which means my hometown in Korean, emerged from South Korea's Incheon International Airport near Seoul, surrounded by throngs of reporters and supporters holding welcome signs. A total of 39 North Korean players and staff dressed in identical dark jackets and skirts and wheeling pink suitcases were greeted by dozens of people from South Korean civic groups holding welcome signs. Naegoyang Women's FC, based in Pyongyang, will face Suwon FC Women in the semi-finals of the Women's Asian Champions League on Wednesday. Founded in 2012, the club won North Korea's top flight title in the 2021-22 season and defeated Suwon 3-0 during the tournament's group stage last year. Local reports said the North and South Korean teams would stay at the same hotel but use separate dining areas and travel routes, limiting direct interaction. North Korea are ranked 11th in the FIFA women's rankings, far ahead of the men's team, who are 118th. And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Digital divide in focus as World Telecommunication Day marked globally. Nepal pushes 4G expansion in remote Himalayan and rural regions. Nepal government moves to fast-track approval of 8 ordinances in Parliament, both upper and lower houses to review emergency legislative agenda. BP highway reconstruction accelerates after 2024 flood devastation. Japan-assisted project aims to transform the route. WHO declares Ebola outbreak in DR Congo a global health emergency concern. Health officials warn of potential regional spread. Pakistan holds talks in Tehran amid renewed Iran-US diplomatic stalemate. Talks dwell on border trade and regional stability. And North Korean women footballers arrive in South Korea after 8-year gap. Asian Champions League clash set amid limited interaction. That's it for this edition of Primetime News. Our next bulletin will be at 2200 hours Nepal time. Meanwhile, do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting, PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal.
Telling stories that endure across centuries, where culture breathes, stories bloom.
When the world moves, we make a sense of it. NTV World.
Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
हिरण्यबाहवे हिरण्यवर्णाय हिरण्यरूपाय हिरण्यपतये अम्बिकापतये उमापतये पशुपतये नमो नमः।
This is The World This Week, your weekly roundup of the latest international events and updates. This is me, Bhavana Casey. In this edition, we bring you the stories making headlines across the globe, from major political developments to geopolitical tensions and alliances, cultural celebrations and remarkable feats. We have all that you need. Let's begin with developments on U.S. President Trump's state visit to China. As global attention focused on shifting geopolitical alignments, Trump held high-stakes talks with his Chinese counterpart in Beijing during his 3-day state visit. Trump said the meeting was very successful and unforgettable, while Xi called it a historic and landmark visit. U.S. President Donald Trump has wrapped up a 3-day state visit to China after high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping focused on trade, regional security, and energy cooperation. Trump departed Beijing on Friday, following what both sides described as a significant round of discussions, marking the first visit by a sitting U.S. president to China after 2017. The two leaders held formal talks at the Great Hall of the People before attending cultural events and a state banquet hosted by Xi. Discussions reportedly covered Iran, global oil supply routes, and economic ties between the world's two largest economies. Speaking before his departure, Trump described the visit as a very successful, world-renowned, and unforgettable, and said he looked forward to hosting Xi in Washington.
We had extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today with the Chinese delegation earlier, and this evening is another cherished opportunity to discuss among friends some of the things that we discussed today, all good for the United States and for China, and it was a great honor to be with you. Please.
Chinese President Xi called the visit historic and landmark, while officials on both sides signaled interest in maintaining communication despite ongoing geopolitical tensions.
这次的访问是一个历史性的、标志性的访问。这个迄今我们已经达成了一个新的两国关系，就是建设性的战略稳定关系。这个可以说是一个里程碑式的这个访问的事件，而且我们达成了很多这个合作的成果的体现。
Trump also claimed that China had agreed to continue supporting stability in the Strait of Hormuz and increase purchases of American oil, although no formal agreements were immediately released.
We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open. We're closing it now. They closed it, and we closed it on top of them. But we want the straits open. And we want them to get it ended because it's a crazy thing. They're a little bit crazy.
The visit was closely watched by global markets and diplomats, with it being viewed as a key test of relations between Beijing and Washington amid continuing disputes over trade and regional influence. This was the first U.S. presidential visit to China in almost a decade after Xi previously hosted Trump in Beijing in November 2017. Just before U.S. President Trump headed to Beijing for high-stakes talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Iran rejected key elements of a U.S.-backed proposal aimed at ending the regional war, deepening diplomatic uncertainty, and rattling global energy markets. Iran's foreign ministry has said it has called for an end to the war across the region and the release of frozen assets abroad in its response to the latest U.S. proposal. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai in a weekly press briefing said Iran's demands include an end to the war in the region, ending the U.S. naval blockade, and the release of assets belonging to the Iranian people, which have for years been unjustly trapped in foreign banks.
تنها چیزی که مطالبه کردیم حقوق مشروع ایران بوده. من قضاوت رو به شما و مردممون واگذار میکنم که آیا مطالبه ایران برای خاتمه جنگ در منطقه، مطالبه ایران برای توقف راهزنی دریایی علیه کشتی‌های ایران، اونچه که تحت عنوان محاصره دریایی اسمش گذاشتند، مطالبه ایران برای آزاد شدن دارایی‌های متعلق به مردم ایران که سالهاست به ناحق به خاطر فشار آمریکا در بانک‌های خارجی محبوس شده، آیا اینها مطالبه زیاده خواهانه است؟ پیشنهاد ما برای این که در تنگه هرمز تردد ایمن صورت بگیره، آیا مطالبه زیاده خواهانه است؟
The US had proposed an end to fighting before starting talks on more contentious issues, including Iran's nuclear program. Tehran also included a demand for compensation for war damage and emphasized Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said he has rejected Iran's response to a US proposal for ending the Middle East war, deeming it totally unacceptable, and warned that Washington will not compromise on security demands. Following Trump's response, oil prices have risen as international oil benchmark Brent rose by 4.1% to $105.50 a barrel in Asian trade before falling slightly. Energy prices have swung widely since the start of the conflict, while Brent crude has risen back over $100 a barrel since the ceasefire came into effect on 8th of April. The key Strait of Hormuz waterway has been effectively shut since shortly after the war started on 28 February, disrupting global supplies of oil and gas. As the Iran conflict continues to dominate international diplomacy, foreign ministers from the BRICS bloc gathered in New Delhi, where discussions were heavily shaped by rising geopolitical tensions and growing energy insecurity. Foreign ministers from the BRICS bloc, including Russia and Iran, have met in New Delhi for high-level talks dominated by the ongoing war in Iran and its widening impact on global energy security and economic stability. India, which holds the BRICS chair this year, is hosting the expanded grouping that now includes countries such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, some of which remain divided over the conflict triggered by the United States and Israel on February the 28th. Opening the two-day meeting, India's Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar warned that the world is experiencing considerable flux, with conflicts driving uncertainty in global trade, fuel supplies, and energy security.
We meet at a time of considerable flux in international relations. Ongoing conflicts, economic uncertainties, and challenges in trade and technology and climate are shaping the global landscape. There is a growing expectation, particularly from emerging markets and developing countries, that BRICS will play a constructive and stabilizing role. In this background, our discussions today are an opportunity to reflect on global and regional developments and to consider practical ways to strengthen our cooperation.
The war in Iran and the resulting fuel crisis took center stage at the BRICS meeting, overshadowing broader economic cooperation as member states confront widening geopolitical divisions and rising energy insecurity. Separately, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi on the sidelines of the summit in New Delhi, with discussions focused on diplomatic efforts to end the ongoing armed conflict in the Middle East. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, the two sides reviewed the course of negotiations to settle the armed conflict unleashed by the United States and Israel in the Middle East, underscoring Moscow's continued engagement with Tehran amid escalating regional tensions. Amid widening global divisions and the Iran conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin used Victory Day commemorations in Moscow to signal a confidence that the war in Ukraine may be nearing its end, while blaming Western nations for prolonging the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said he thinks Russia's conflict with Ukraine is coming to an end, addressing reporters after a scaled-back military parade in Moscow, marking the Soviet victory in World War II. Putin also criticized Western countries for helping Ukraine.
Ну, все замечательно, пообещали помощь и начали раскручивать противостояние с Россией, которое продолжается до сих пор. Я думаю, что дело идет к завершению, но все-таки это серьезная вещь.
Putin's comments came just hours after he used his Victory Day's parade to justify the war. In that speech, he said Russia was fighting a just war and called Ukraine an aggressive force that was being armed and supported by the whole bloc of NATO. Russia's annual parade lacked the usual display of tanks and missiles due to security concerns, as officials feared Ukraine might target Red Square with drones. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there was no military hardware at the Red Square parade, which the Kremlin normally showcases to project Russian military power on the international stage. Meanwhile, a last-minute ceasefire between Moscow and Kiev, brokered by US President Donald Trump, reduced the danger of any attack, and the parade passed off without any incident. Russian forces seized Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine in 2014, then launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Putin said he will only meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky once a lasting peace deal has been agreed to. Putin said he had heard that Zelensky was ready to hold a personal meeting, but added that this is not the first time he has heard such statements. As part of the US-led ceasefire deal over the weekend, Kiev and Moscow agreed to a swap of 1,000 prisoners from each country. But Putin said on Saturday that Russia had not yet heard from Ukraine about any exchanges. Beyond global politics and health concerns, Thailand has intensified crackdowns on transnational crime, seizing a record ivory shipment in the country's biggest wildlife trafficking bust in recent years.
Thai authorities have announced one of the largest ivory seizures in recent years, intercepting a major smuggling attempt involving 250 kilograms of African elephant tusk. The operation marks the biggest ivory confiscation in more than a decade and highlights the continued challenge of illegal wildlife trafficking in the region. According to police, 9 suspects have been detained in connection with the case. The group is accused of attempting to illegally sell the tusk through social media platforms, particularly Facebook, using covert accounts and encrypted communication to arrange transactions with potential buyers. Investigators believe the network was part of a wider transnational smuggling chain, moving protected wildlife products from Africa into Southeast Asia. Authorities said the ivory was carefully concealed to avoid detection during transport and was intended for sale in small, high-value batches to evade law enforcement scrutiny. The seizure was made after an extended surveillance operation, during which officers monitored online activity and tracked suspicious listings linked to wildlife products. Officials from Thailand's wildlife and environmental agencies have praised the operation as a significant breakthrough in the fight against illegal ivory trade, which continues to threaten elephant populations despite international bans.
Turning to South Asia, concerns are growing over the preservation of historic heritage structures in India's capital. The once grand Mughal-era Havelis that stand as symbols of the city's rich architecture are increasingly falling into disrepair as preservation efforts struggle against time, urban pressure and complex ownership disputes.
Once the grand residences of Mughal-era nobility, the Indian capital's palace-like homes, locally known as Havelis, now stand at a fragile crossroads. A handful lovingly restored, but many more sliding quietly into ruin. Across Old Delhi, cracked facades, shattered gateways and sagging balconies tell the story of a heritage under siege. These palace-like structures with the intricately carved doors, choroka balconies and sprawling courtyards were once symbols of wealth, power and artistry, reflecting centuries of Delhi's rich cultural and architectural history. Today, however, the story is one of decay and neglect. For families like the Mathurs, preserving a Haveli is a labor of love. Ashok Mathur, 56, has lived in Mathur Ki Haveli for 5 generations.
So this house is touching about 130 plus years now, and you see that we haven't touched much of the architecture. We haven't disturbed much of the architecture except for the repairs that we keep doing it for maintaining it. And it's been a house for about 5 generations now for us.
While a few Havelis have been lovingly restored, the majority are succumbing to time, urban sprawl and complex ownership disputes that stall preservation efforts. Conservationist K.T. Ravindran says that many such Havelis suffer from unclear titles and multiple claimants.
It is in a condition of deterioration. That certainly is so, because not much investment has gone into the old city. All the investment is hogged by the new part of the city. Most Indian cities have this dichotomous condition of an old city and a new city. So all the investment, the new capital that flows into the city goes to the new part of the city, and the old part stays neglected.
It is also warned that without targeted restoration programs, legal clarity for ownership and public awareness, many Havelis could vanish, taking with them a tangible link to India's rich past.
Well, the selective restoration is actually becomes like a catalyst in the process of change, because people see that if this can be improved, why not my place? So they start thinking in terms of improvement, and that can actually kind of snowball into a larger movement,
Beyond the legal and financial hurdles, the physical upkeep of Havelis is itself a challenge. Residents who continue to live in these homes often must balance modern living needs with preservation, repairing roofs, replacing beams, and maintaining decorative details, all while keeping the spirit of the original architecture intact.
To futuristic innovation, South Korea is embracing artificial intelligence in entertainment with a new robot-themed park in Seoul, showcasing humanoid performances and immersive AI experiences. South Korean entertainment company Galaxy Corporation has launched a robot-themed park in Seoul featuring humanoid robot boxing matches, AI-powered performances, and K-pop dance shows as the country expands its push into next-generation entertainment and robotics technology. The newly opened facility combines interactive exhibits, live robot demonstrations, and immersive digital attractions, offering visitors a glimpse into what developers describe as a future where humans and robots coexist more closely in daily life. The park's attractions include robots performing choreographed dance routines, engaging in mock combat sports, and interacting directly with audiences through artificial intelligence systems designed to simulate conversation and emotional responses. Organizers say the concept blends education with entertainment to make advanced technology more accessible to younger audiences. Company officials say the project reflects rising commercial interest in integrating AI and robotics into mainstream entertainment industries, particularly in South Korea, where investment in emerging technologies has accelerated in recent years. Nature takes center stage in Turkey, where local Duden Lake has transformed into a thriving habitat, hosting nearly 40,000 birds from 180 species, as recent rainfall restored water levels and revived the surrounding ecosystem.
Turkey's Duden Lake is currently hosting nearly 40,000 migratory birds from around 180 different species. Known among locals as a flamingo paradise, the lake has become a vibrant refuge for wildlife following recent rainfall that significantly increased water levels and revived the surrounding ecosystem. Striking images of the migratory birds inhabiting the lake captured, including large flocks of flamingos, offered referred to in Anatolia as the crimson cranes. In addition to flamingos, the lake provides shelter for numerous bird species such as the white-headed duck, pied avocet, ferruginous duck, and Mediterranean gull. Covering an area of approximately 860 kilometers, the lake is fed by the Degir-Menazu stream and serves as a crucial breeding, feeding, and resting habitat for migratory birds traveling along regional migration routes.
Continuing Asia's cultural celebrations, thousands gathered in Hong Kong for the annual Tin Hau Birthday Parade, a centuries-old tradition featuring vibrant dragon processions and community festivities.
Thousands of residents and visitors line the Hong Kong streets of as the annual Tin Hau Birthday Parade returned to mark the birthday of Tin Hau, one of the most important traditional festivals in the southern Chinese communities. The parade, a long-standing cultural tradition in Yuan Long, was led by a 38-meter golden dragon weaving through the district's main roads. Festival participants and spectators reached out to touch the dragon, a gesture believed to bring prosperity, good health, and blessings for family and children. Following closely behind was a large raisin dragon, presented by the Junior Police Call campaign, using the traditional display to promote anti-fraud awareness messages to the public. The colorful procession attracted large crowds along the route, with many residents gathering early to watch the celebrations. Organizers said 33 teams took part in this year's parade, including rural fireworks groups and community organizations from across Yuan Long. The annual Tin Hau Festival falls on the 23rd day of the third lunar month in the Chinese calendar and is widely observed by fishing and coastal communities. The Yuan Long procession has been held since 1963 as part of traditional prayers for favorable weather, safety, and abundant harvests.
As we wrap up this week's edition, Vietnam's Da Nang has emerged as one of Asia's top summer destinations for 2026, further strengthening its position on the global tourism map. Da Nang has been ranked second on Lonely Planet's list of the best destinations in Asia for the summer of 2026, highlighting the Vietnamese coastal city's growing international tourism appeal. Da Nang has been enlisted alongside several major Asian destinations, including Busan, Bali, Almaty, Sendai, and Mongolia's Altai Mountains. According to Lonely Planet, June is considered the ideal time to visit Da Nang, known for its coastline, beaches, and resort destinations in central Vietnam. Da Nang's latest recognition further strengthens its position on the international tourism map, particularly in beach tourism, luxury resorts, and outdoor travel experiences, as Vietnam continues to attract growing numbers of regional and international visitors. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of The World This Week. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did bringing it to you. Also, do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles, as well as our YouTube channel. We shall see you again next week with a new episode. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
Welcome to Declassified Beyond the Brief with me, Devendra Subedi. Today we bring you the story from the alleys of Kathmandu to NASDAQ, which is the US stock exchange. The gentleman we have with us today recently hit headlines in Nepal as a successful entrepreneur whose company, Fuse Machines, a company working in the field of artificial intelligence, which we call AI, made its debut at the NASDAQ or the US stock exchange. In this episode of Declassified, we try to explore the journey of a successful Nepali in global business arena. Artificial intelligence itself, changing trends in global business world, Nepali identity abroad, and much more.
Dr. Samir Maske, a change maker, computer scientist, and educator, has spent his career at the crossroads of innovation and education. He believes artificial intelligence isn't just transforming industries, it's reshaping opportunity itself. In 2013, he founded Fuse Machines, a New York-based company with a bold mission to democratize AI and make its benefits accessible to all. Though headquartered in the United States, its roots and much of its talent remain deeply connected to Nepal, where the company first launched its AI fellowship program, training local engineers and students in cutting-edge technology. Over the past decade, Fuse Machines has empowered thousands of AI learners and built advanced solutions across finance, healthcare, retail, and media, bridging academics and industry. Its proprietary platform, AI Studio, drives predictive and generative AI systems, helping businesses automate decisions, detect fraud, and make sense of data at scale. Listed on NASDAQ in October 2025, Fuse Machines reached a valuation of about $200 million. From Kathmandu to New York, Dr. Maske's vision proves that innovation and education can bridge worlds, turning intelligence into opportunity.
Please welcome Dr. Samir Maske, founder and CEO of Fuse Machine.
Thank you for having me here.
Dr. Maske, is the joy of being listed in NASDAQ still soaking in?
Definitely. It was a very long, arduous, hard journey to get listed in NASDAQ. And it's a relief, obviously. And it's slowly sinking in that we're actually now listed in NASDAQ and we're a public company.
So we're pretty lucky because we caught you in person here in Kathmandu, because you're basically based in your headquarters in New York. Is it a holiday trip after that success?
It's partly holiday trip, partly work. So my family, my mother, sister, brother, basically pretty much all of my extended family is here. So I'm here to see them. And then because how difficult the process was, the usual trips I used to make multiple times a year, I had not been able to make it for almost last 12 months to see all the colleagues and employees here in Nepal office. So part of it is just coming back to see everyone and see all the colleagues in Fuse Machines, Nepal.
It will be an interesting conversation with Dr. Samir Maske, but initially what we're going to do is we are going to go to the roots of Dr. Maske. Let's start with your journey, Dr. Maske. Can you tell us more about your journey from the alleys of Kathmandu, I'd prefer to say it, to NASDAQ?
Definitely. So I was born and raised in Nepal. Yeah, so as a child, I would run in the gullies of Tamil. That's where I grew up. I went to school here. Finished my SLC, it's called ACE now, and the ISE, and now it's mostly plus 10 plus 2 and A-levels and so forth. So I finished my ISE, taking science as a subject. And during my last year, I applied for colleges in the US. I got a scholarship into a few colleges, and that's when my journey to the United States started. Went to the US, to Bates College. It's a small college up in Maine, and studied math and physics. and then went on to do a PhD in AI because I was interested in computer science. I was interested in making machines talk, making machines understand us. And so that research passion led me doing a PhD, after which I joined IBM Watson Research Center, where I continued to do research on speech-to-speech translation system, like English to French, German, Chinese, Arabic, many different kinds of speech-to-speech translation systems, question answering systems, deep question answering systems and whatnot. And as I did that for quite a while, after some time, I left IBM and then started teaching AI courses at Columbia University, and then also started Fuse Machines, which was also based on basically all the learnings I had done on AI and thinking about how to turn that into a business.
It is an interesting fact that Dr. Samir Maski is currently an adjunct associate professor at the University of Columbia teaching AI. So it's not just business, right? Can you tell us more about how your academics helped you build a business?
Education has been very close to my heart for a long time. My mom was a school teacher, it's called Bhagwan Bal, as this primary school. So I'd seen her teach all these kids, and when I used to come back from school, I could see her teaching and so forth, and would wait outside. So, and I've seen over the years how education, the students she has taught to all these kids have grown up now and are successful in their own businesses or education and so forth. So academia has always been very close and always been very interested in it, and that's why I ended up doing a PhD. Like, research was a passion, knowledge was a passion. So because of that, when I was in my undergrad and I was studying math and physics, I wanted to build a speech synthesis system. And that led me to a library where I found a book and then started reading about it and taught myself how to build a speech synthesizer. And that started my academic journey on AI, like almost 25 years ago.
So you started your journey into AI, doing research, your academics in AI almost 25 years ago.
Yes, when nobody cared about AI. Right now, AI is, like, everybody talks about AI, but 25 years ago, nobody cared. And it was just sheer interest on how things work as an engineering field.
I'd be wrong if I say your interest was only in IT at that time. In fact, 25 years ago, you were already targeting, zeroing on your interest area as AI then 25 years ago.
Yes. In fact, the first, I had built this Nepali text-to-speech synthesizer, which is making machines talk in Nepali. And I released it as an open source software. I did a presentation at NAST, at the time RONAST, and I gave a presentation on how to build a Nepali speech synthesis, like making machines speak in Nepali. And that was 24 years ago.
How was the reaction after that? Did anybody come back and consult you and try to develop that into a new thing in Nepal?
It was good, like at the moment but it didn't materialize into anything else out of it. So we released it as open source. But Nepal was pretty far behind in computer science, IT, especially 20-something years ago. There was barely internet, right? And a lot of the talent we have, who has exposure, was not there yet. So nobody really knew what to do with it. Somebody came, presented Nepali speech synthesis system. Okay, it sounds great, but how to use it here, how to build on it, none of that happened. So that software just stayed there in the shelf.
Before starting your own company, you worked for some world-renowned companies. When exactly did you decide it's time now for me to start my business?
So after PhD, I worked at IBM Watson Research Center as a research staff member for a few years. And as I mentioned, it was that interest of building speech-to-speech translation system, and IBM had one of the best speech-to-speech translation system research group at the time. And as I did research and published papers, and did more research and published papers, it came to a point where I saw, well, I've been doing research by then I'd been doing research for almost 15 years. And we're doing research and publishing. Like, it's not really impacting lives in the scale that I wanted. So after about 5 years after working at IBM, I said, okay, can I take all the learnings in AI I've been doing since like early 2000 to this is like 2013, 2012. Can I take all of that and apply into a business and start a company, build an AI product and sell it, to build a business around it so that it can have impact? And that's sort of what I did.
In the next part of the conversation, we'll talk about the fuse machines itself. Well, Dr. Maski, if I don't ask you these questions, maybe I'll not be doing justice to my viewers as well. How rich are you at this moment?
It all depends on how one perceives wealth, right? At the end of it, what matters is the family and health. For me, that's the most important thing, the family and being there and making an impact and so forth. The total market cap when it for the deal was 200 million. Post money is 280 million. And the opening at that opening at $10, it has gone down and is opened at less. So as the share prices move back and forth, it could come down, it could go up, and so forth. But it's no longer just me, right? It's all of our employees. Many of our employees are shareholders. A lot of the investors are shareholders.
Is it possible for a Nepal-based company to be enlisted globally, like in NASDAQ or in other global share market or stock exchanges? Is it possible? It has to be US-based.
I think from legality perspective, at least Nepal laws do not allow a fully Nepali company to be listed in NASDAQ because of some of the old rules and laws around Nepali citizens' rights of owning foreign assets and foreign shares and so forth. If that changes, then definitely so. As of right now, it has to be, at least as of right now, if there are companies that are headquartered in the US and is based in the US but have significant presence and have origins in Nepal, they can definitely list in NASDAQ.
So you are the first company that was founded by a Nepali person of Nepali origin to be enlisted in NASDAQ. How big is it?
I would say, being the company that has, basically we have a lot of presence in here. We are Nepali roots, Nepali values, and so forth. And from that perspective, being one of the first company to have such level of roots and ties to Nepal and being listed in NASDAQ is extremely satisfying, obviously. And I hope it becomes an example for other companies to strive and be listed in NASDAQ or other New York, other stock exchanges. And I hope we are the first among many to do that.
What's your next business plan? Like you are spreading slowly into a global business. You are already in South America, in some of the countries in North America, Canada, US, also Nepal-based, you said. So what's your next plan to promote the business globally?
Especially as a public company, growth is one of the most significant metric that everybody looks at us from, right? So from that perspective, one of the biggest focus would be growth. Both organic growth with our own team doing more sales and so forth, and with inorganic growth as well, with potential acquisitions and M&A activities and so forth. As far as the scaling out from just the US and Nepal, we've already on multiple countries, and we will continue to expand based on the needs of the clients, based on where we see the most value being generated and where the growth from sales happens.
There must have been challenges in the journey. Right now, as you said, you started it in 2013, almost 12 years of hard work, promotion, dedication, vision, innovation, as you said, right? As I have seen, as I saw myself, most of the Nepalese or Nepali diaspora in the US, I found a lot of youngsters working in the field of IT. So what are the challenges for, let's say, Nepali youngsters in the US or even in Nepal to build a business in IT or AI at present? What are the major challenges that you would suggest they should resolve those first?
Particularly in Nepal?
Nepal, as well as the Nepali diaspora in the US who want to emulate your steps.
I would say Nepali diaspora has an easy. I mean, starting a company is not easy, obviously, but if you look at the challenges, the youth in Nepal, they are faced with more challenges on trying to start a business and scale it. I would say there are various reasons for it, and there are many kinds of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges I would say is on funding, because especially as a smaller company, as a smaller startup, funding, you do need funding to sustain the company as you try to figure out product market fit, service market fit, and you need to be able to sustain that while you might not be making a lot of revenue. Especially if you want to go for, solving very extremely hard problems, you might not have a revenue coming in soon. In those cases, places like the United States or other countries, there's more capital, there's more risk capital available, where the investors may take a chance saying, okay, let's see where this can lead to, where you are able to take the risk and really build a very strong suite of products without having a clear revenue model right in the day one. But obviously all businesses require revenue models, but you get longer time to do that. In Nepal, there is not a lot of financing mechanisms for an entrepreneur to stay afloat while they are taking this risk and building these extremely difficult products. So that's one of the biggest challenges I see.
For an innovation like AI, IT, initially to be an enterprise has to have an impact. In Nepal, where IT still is, I would not say a luxury right now, because we do have access almost across the country right now, though intermittent at times. So what challenge do you see in country like ours, where you would see more and more IT-based company, AI-based companies emerging?
So besides the capital, I think compute infrastructure there's not, for example, even we struggle to find enough GPUs. And for AI, you need a lot of GPUs and compute power to build these models, train these models, inference, and to do an inference and so forth. And if we want the tech infrastructure and the overall tech ecosystem in Nepal to really produce a lot of tech companies, IT companies that are building products for Nepal, in Nepal, for Nepalese, then the compute infrastructure needs to be figured out. And that has not been done so. So I think that's one of the challenges. There are other challenges, obviously, from intellectual property laws and so forth, right? Like in a lot of more developed countries, some of these laws are more fine-tuned, so nobody can just do whatever they want, and if they are infringing copyrights and so forth, some of those needs to be also tightened up, so that somebody who's taking that risk and building something has some capacity to say, this is what I built and this is my intellectual property.
Going back to Fuse Machines, Dr. Maske, what makes a great company? Fuse Machines, let's say, where would you rank in the scale of a great company from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest?
I do not know how to rank the company that I started. But what I can say is, for any company, one of the most crucial factor is the culture of the company, on how everybody comes together to do something very big. And in order to do that, one of the most important stuff is vision. Like, what is the overall vision of the company? So I think the vision brings about the clarity on where you want to go. And the culture is part of the main DNA of the company that makes a company exciting to work for, exciting to join, exciting to build things for. And those parameters makes a great company.
So if I say it's great visionary leadership, backed up by a very creative and ethical workforce, that makes a great company. Would I be wrong?
Yeah, I think that is a good way to sum it.
So Fuse Machine is right in that track. Would you say that?
So we have amazing set of leaders in the company who are unified in the vision of democratizing AI, and that thesis of what we believe in, of making sure especially talent is everywhere, but opportunities are not, and opportunities should be. And having that clarity on that vision and all the leadership seeing that and creating the culture needed for the company to fulfill that dream. I think that makes the fuse machines be able to execute things the way we want. That has allowed us to be at this stage.
How is the work culture, as you said, like how multinational is the team right now in fuse machines?
Oh, very much. So, there are many languages get spoken. We are across quite a few countries in Latin America as well. We have employees in India, consultants in India. We have largest presences in Nepal. Then we're in Canada. So there's a mix of different cultures and languages, which makes it very exciting
to work as and to lead it as well. Yes. Well, very inspiring story of Dr. Samir Maske. That's what we are hearing right now, right here at the studios of NTV World. And in the next part of this conversation, we talk about Dr. Samir Maske as an international Nepali citizen, the flag bearer of Nepal in the global market. Dr. Maske, you have emerged as a Nepali flag bearer in the global business arena, but the emergence of your, let's say, emergence remained a pleasant surprise to many in Nepal. It was very quiet journey. We only came to know about your fuse machines, Dr. Samir Maske, very few. But how did you keep it so quietly, or how did you do it intentionally quietly?
We've been building the business for almost 12, 13 years. And when you are truly trying to fulfill your vision, it's never about never about marketing and brand and stories and whatnot. It's about the overall ethos of what you're trying to do, which is impact lives, bring job opportunities, provide high quality education. So we've been doing that for a while because that's the core mission of fuse machines. And as we have done it, people have heard about some of the fellowship programs we have done. So we started AI Fellowship, Fuse Machines AI Fellowship, almost 7-8 years ago. I took some of my courses and packaged it and then taught it here to a surprisingly amazing results, which allowed us and said, okay, we should take that and make it a full-blown AI Fellowship program. Mm-hmm. And now, especially among young youth who are trying to learn AI, they know the AI Fellowship program quite well. Whenever we open the fellowship programs, we get thousands of applicants. So, it's among the community of AI and engineers, people do know about fuse machines, mm-hmm. but probably maybe not in a broader Nepal view.
Anyway, it has been a very successful journey, but can you define success now? It's a very, let's say, ambiguous question I might be asking, but for you, what is success? How can you define it, relating it to you personally?
So, success, the word success could mean different things for different people, right? Depending on the age, depending on where you're at the stage of life and so forth. For a young kid, passing that final exam and getting 100% is the success. For a global world leader, impacting millions of lives is probably a success. So it means different things for different people. If I had to think about that word itself, what comes to my mind is family, being there for them. My wife, my kids, my mother, my sister, brother, and so forth, and being there when they need me, and being able to share the experience as a whole together is a success.
Has it changed you a bit, the success that you've achieved in the last few years, especially after, let's say, the enlisting in the US stock exchange? Has it changed you personally? Has your life changed, or it's still the same?
No, nothing has changed. It is still the same. There's been a bit of exposure here, and there's been news articles and whatnot, but no, nothing has changed on a day-to-day life.
Well, Dr. Maske, being a Nepali citizen originally, Was it difficult or easier for you to work in the US, especially when you were trying to build up a business?
US is a melting pot of pretty much all citizens around the world, of all ethnicity, races, and so forth. I went as a very young kid, right, right after high school, and it didn't make as much of a difference, especially when you are among the students who are all there to study. Nepal definitely has that charm for a lot of people, where they learn about Mount Everest, they learn about the culture here, and so forth. From a perspective of having deep roots and values that have been instilled to me by my mom and the family, has definitely helped, right? The transparency, truth, ethics, these are like hospitality, these are some of the values that you learn in Nepal when you grow up. And those have definitely helped me in a global world on being able to compete.
So your roots have definitely helped you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Nepali roots have absolutely helped me.
We are just talking about the journey, the dedication, the hard work that Dr. Samir Maske and his team, the multinational team behind the success of the Fuse machine, put up in these 13 years for the investment in NASDAQ. Now, in the next part of our conversation, we talk about AI, which I am a novice in, and to much of our viewers must be more interesting because they are much into it. How would you define AI, the artificial intelligence, Dr. Maske, being a practitioner and in fact a person who has built up a business, a very successful one in it? How would you define AI? What exactly is AI?
You can think of it as a machine that takes input, does a reasoning on it, and produces an output that is useful for humans. If I were to define it in the simplest form, that's what it would be. That reasoning system that sits in the middle, taking input and producing outputs that's useful for humans.
Is it still an evolving technology, or it's at its peak? In the next 5 years, how would it evolve, if it's evolving?
It is still very evolving. And the pace of evolution, or the change in AI and the tech behind AI, is unlike I've ever seen before. Right? Like, I did research in question answering system. The natural language processing world has been my life, from PhD to at IBM to teaching, all of that. But over the last 5 years, suddenly everything has changed in AI. A lot of things have changed. So the speed at which AI is changing is extremely rapid, and it will continue to do so. Definitely there is a little bit of overhype, where people think, like when I talk to some enterprise C-suite, they think, they may have heard and read and whatnot, and they think everything under the sun can be solved with AI, which is not the case. But it can do a lot at the moment.
Where do you see the technology in the next 5 years?
So,
especially I'm asking you this question because there's a few people like me who do not have much information about AI. We fear as if it is going to replace human intelligence, or even job loss, or let's say loss of privacy. These are some of the issues that we basically fear. So is that a valid fear in us?
Some of it could be valid from a perspective of, maybe not in 5 years, but in 10 years, are all the cars going to drive itself, right? And I was just in San Francisco recently, and
that's already a reality there.
It's already a reality. I ordered a Waymo, which is similar to Uber, but it's a driverless car. A car just came near me, the door opened, I sat inside, and it just took me a route, stopped and opened and got out. There was no driver. So now that tech is evolving very fast, and more cities are producing that. Now that could generate a genuine questions to all the people who are making their livelihood based on driving cars or driving, like providing this.
Or the Uber service, let's say, to be specific in the US.
Now, should they be worried a bit?
They are worried, because I had a very interesting conversation with some of the people in LA itself who are in this service. So they were pretty much worried, especially the diaspora, Nepali diaspora, or the people who are relying to that. So that could be a possibility?
That could definitely be a possibility. So there are jobs where it could potentially be fully automated. But having said that, I would say AI brings in a lot of augmentation and efficiency gains, which will not necessarily replace the human, but produce a lot more efficient human, almost like a superhuman, where the person will be able to do more jobs in less amount of time. And that efficiency gains could impact overall economic output, which could then generate a lot more new kind of jobs, right? Like already there is prompt engineering, which does not exist before. AI audit, like auditing AI models, those kind of jobs did not exist. So there are new jobs already being created. So I think that will happen as well.
How foolproof is it, Dr. Maske? Can we 100% rely on it?
Foolproof as in, will it always be accurate? And I mean, depends on the problem that it is working on.
Since you're talking about auditing, for example, so would it be 100% correct in that sense?
At least probably, if you try to build an AI audit system at this point, it probably will not. And in many cases, it might never be 100%, because we as humans also make error.
Or the people like you would like to leave some space for the humans there as well?
No, the thing is, the AI is just learning from humans. And when it's learning from humans, if the training data has a certain amount of ambiguity, then it will also not be able to separate out some of those ambiguities, in which case it will make those errors. So in many cases, you will see 95% accuracy or 96%. In some instances, it has gone to 99%. But if you look at enterprise AI being built right now, in many cases, it is actually 90% or less than 90%, right? So there's still a decent amount of progress that we need to do to make AI what I quote unquote foolproof, which is not the case for every instance right now.
Well, enlighten me on this particular question, Dr. Maske. People like me who are still a novice, or people like many of our viewers who are pretty much, let's say, a novice in AI, will they be a misfit in near future in the society?
Misfit as in?
In terms of everything, because we are taking assistance for AI, as you said earlier, could be a misinterpretation or misuse of the technology itself, for each and everything, from students doing their homework to designing mega projects. We have heard AI can be used and is being used. So if you do not know how to get acquainted with it, or if you're not acquainted with it, will that person be a misfit soon in the society?
Yeah, I would say as the AI evolves and it produces these tools that we can use for efficiency gains and so forth, the more and more people should learn how to use some of these tools, because if you don't use it, I don't know if misfit is the word, but you will be left behind, right? Because somebody else who has a similar job or role and academic credentials, if knows how to be 50% or 100% more efficient because he or she knows how to use the tools, then obviously that person has an advantage.
Let's move on to one of the slogans of your company, Dr. Maske. Democratizing AI is one of the slogans of your company, Fuse Machines. Can you tell us more about it? Why AI needs democratization? And what does that slogan exactly mean?
For us, it means providing AI education, high quality AI education in all the underserved countries and communities around the world and in the United States. And providing that access to AI such that everybody is able to learn AI and build AI for their own communities. That's what democratized AI means for us.
So your company is championing that. How much of that contribution your company has started making in, let's say, making it more accessible in every nooks and corners of this world, let's say?
So we've been doing AI fellowship as part of the democratizing AI effort in Nepal, We've done in a few countries in Africa, we've done in Latin America, we've done in the United States. So we've been providing this free education as part of that mission and journey. In Nepal, we've been doing fellowship programs for quite a while, and we launched a program called AI Shiksha for Nepal as part of this democratizing AI effort. And we will continue to do so. And the hope is AI Shiksha for Nepal program will through that program, we'll be able to provide AI education to many, many, many students here in Nepal.
What is the contribution of a country like Nepal in the global AI ecosystem?
It can make a lot of contribution.
That's a meaningful statement. It can make.
Yes, it can make a big contribution, a very meaningful contribution to the in the global stage of AI. And I would say that partly because of the talent here. There is a lot of talent who can be trained in AI and who can produce both services and product for the world. Services, obviously, outsourcing services and other kind of services can be done here from Nepal. But beyond that, I think the talent is so good that if we just train them a bit more and make them competitive enough for a global stage, then they will be able to build products right here in Nepal for the world. In which case you will have products built in Nepal, sold out all outside of Nepal and in Nepal. And I think that will be a global contribution. But beyond that, even for Nepal, I think there are a lot of AI products that could be built in Nepal for Nepal by Nepali engineers. And I think that will be amazing to see in the coming months, years, and the decade.
My question is, the ethical use of AI, how would you promote it and advocate it, given that your slogan, democratizing AI, is also trying to spread it across? So does that promote the ethical use of AI or the random use of AI?
So when we do provide AI education, we talk, one of the chapters and sections is about ethics, AI ethics and AI policies and so forth. And this is a very important question because AI is impacting a lot of lives and it's starting to automate a lot of things. And as you said, some people might lose jobs, some people might not be happy about this. But in total, net, I think there's a lot of good that is coming. But even then, ethics and how AI and the data privacy sort of interacts with it, and do we have right policies on data privacies? Do we have right laws mandated on face recognition? So those are some of the very important questions that we need to address. And I think many countries are starting to catch up to the tech, right? Because the tech's so speeding ahead that government, federally, locally, are still doing a catch-up game on policies, right? And to give you an example, there was a law passed a while ago that, not in Nepal, outside of Nepal, that if you are using an AI system to filter resumes for more than 50%, that model needs to be audited. But what does model auditing, AI model auditing even means, and who's going to do it? None of that was clear, right? So that created a situation where people were confused. So I think, especially things related to AI and the ethics of AI, there needs to be more study. There needs to be more policymakers who has also studied AI, spend time on it, and figure out how all of this intersection needs to be untangled to make sure AI is impacting lives for better and not necessarily for worse.
We see a lot of misuse of AI, let's say defaming someone, infringing into privacy of someone. So could there be a system within the AI itself that could stop things like that?
If not fully stop, at least identifying misinformation, fake videos, fake pictures, those are some of the new AI systems being built. We are all, because we have had some issues where, for example, the candidates, especially when we are hiring remote engineers, the person who interviewed versus person who applied and who started working were all different. And we didn't catch fast enough until they got onboarded. And then we realized, oh, the person who's attending the meeting doesn't look anywhere like the person who interviewed, right? And we are playing that catch-up. And that playing that catch up requires actually additional kind of AI systems, which will also help us to catch fake videos and fake interviewers, like job interviewers who are interviewing with generated faces in the interviews, and so forth. So to catch the systems, we need, it's the AI system generating the problems, but at the same time, we need AI systems to help us catch those problems as well.
And that needs greater investment, as you said, greater enforcement. For example, kids as young as, let's say, 10, 12, were exposed to AI tools, are not aware about the ethical use of AI, because the system that they are exposed with would be the cheaper one, readily available one, free to use one, which are more onto attracting users and generating money out of that. So can there be a system within the AI to control things as such?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is verification systems coming in place, and I think even the large language model systems like ChatGPT and others are coming up with a framework on how to give a safe access to kids of certain age, below 13, below 9, below 18, and so forth. So those could be built in.
Very interesting conversation. We're talking to Dr. Samir Maske, founder and CEO of Fuse Machines, adjunct associate professor at University of Columbia, teaches artificial intelligence, which could replace you and I tomorrow unless we get to learn about it, unless we learn more and more about it. We are trying to conclude this conversation now. Dr. Samir Maske, what message do you have to the aspiring Nepali entrepreneurs who want to build businesses around AI, IT, and go globally as you?
What I would say is, for aspiring entrepreneurs here, you have the talent, you have skills that are equally competitive to any other aspiring entrepreneurs around the world. And if you aspire to build an AI company, you should absolutely go for it and build it and start a dream here, but I'm pretty sure many will be able to take it to the global stage. So you should just absolutely go for it.
Final thought on the political changes that the country has seen, if any you want to make?
There's been a lot of changes over time, and some of the frustrations have boiled up to a level where it brought about this change, and this puts us at a beginning stages of being able to bring a new kind of processes, new kind of developments, and a new energy in the youth that hopefully will energize the whole government, and hopefully with the new election coming in, we'll have a new government set up that will work for all Nepali citizens for the greater good of Nepal.
Dr. Samir Maske. Dr. Maske, it was a great pleasure for NTV World Studios to have you on Declassified. Wish you more luck, and maybe you would be able to make your company more global next time we meet again. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, we had a very inspiring conversation with Dr. Samir Maske, the founder and CEO of Fuse Machines. Hope this conversation inspires all the budding entrepreneurs who would like to follow his footsteps, if not being better than what he has achieved so far. Well, do keep us following on our social media platforms, our Facebook page, our X page, our TikTok handle, and also on our website, www.ntvworldnepal.com. Until next time, from this episode of Declassified, bye-bye.
Hello, Saudi Kharka, hello! Wow!
एकदमै राम्रो रहेछ रिफ्रेस्ड फिल भयो त्यो के होसबाट अलि टाढा आएको जस्तो
यहाँसम्मको एउटा केबल कार भइदिए एकदम बेटर हुन्थ्यो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई
माहौल अथवा यहाँको वातावरण यति रमणीय छ कि यसलाई शब्दमा वर्णन गर्न पनि साध्य छैन
The gently flowing Sani Bheri is suddenly veiled by drifting clouds, and with the chill rising from its swift current, the desire to soar is fulfilled as we enter eastern Rukum. Stone and clay houses stacked upon one another, the white Himalayan peaks, vibrant flower gardens of Bukit Batan, melodious rivers and lakes, and unique authentic arts and culture. All of these make Eastern Rukum a place that captivates every visitor. Our aim is to bring this distant, remote land closer to all. This time our destination is Chauri Kharga, located at an altitude of about 4,000 meters above sea level. Our trek begins at Bati Halune. On the border of Eastern Rukum and Baglung along the Mid-Hill Highway. Though it is said that the hike to Chauri Kharga takes around 3 hours, we wonder how long it will take us.
रमाइलो छ उड्यान छ हात हाततिर यतै ल घामले गर्दा मैले एउटा सेकेन्ड रमाइलो लाग्यो भन्ने चौर गर्दा भन्ने यस्तो रमाइलो ठाउँ रहेछ हेर्नु
I'm very happy.
हिजो हामीले यस्तो मजाको सिन हेर्न पाइएन अहिले चाहिँ त्यही अब आज हजुर
बिहान 5 बजे आएर ल्याएको अब हिजो बेलुका त पुरै कुहिरो दियो यहाँ त केही देखिदैन
Chaurikarka sits high in the hills of Bhumi Rural Municipality 1 in eastern Rukum. It is truly a rare gift of nature, beyond words to fully describe. In winter, these hills lie under a blanket of snow, but now they open up in vibrant color. Green pastures, wide grazing lands, blossoming flowers, and herds of yaks, sheep, and horses make Chaurikarka a destination of extraordinary delight. When the sun breaks through the northern peaks, Puta, Dhaulagiri, Turin, and Sisne, they reveal themselves in full grandeur. Rivers flowing through the valleys, including the northern Ganga and Nisel Dhor, together with the backdrop of Dhor Patan, enchant every traveller. The meadows of Chauri Kharka bloom with colourful flowers. Among them, cows, sheep and horses graze peacefully, creating a scene that feels almost dreamlike. Travelers walk along narrow trails, disappearing and reappearing through the mist, immersed in the enchantment of the landscape.
हाम्रो वरिपरिको यो डाँडाहरू भ्यू भने के उसु भने वाइल्ड फ्लावर्सले सबैले एकदम रिफ्रेश त्यही नै भन्ने होला आउन पनि वर्थ इटै छ.
The weary faces of trekkers brighten as they take in these views, and you can clearly see joy and wonder reflected in their eyes. Fatigue melts away into the beauty of nature. Eastern Rukum is blessed with a wealth of natural treasures, mountains, rivers, lakes, caves, and valuable herbs. In recent years, Chauri Kharka has become an increasingly popular destination for domestic travelers, drawing visitors eager to witness its natural magnificence. The World Health Organization (WHO) has declared an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo as a public health emergency of international concern. The agency said the outbreak in Democratic Republic Congo's eastern Ituri province, which has seen around 246 suspected cases and 80 deaths reported, does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency. But it warned it could potentially be a much larger outbreak than what is currently being detected and reported, with significant
heightened risk of local and regional spread. According to the UN Health Agency, there are no approved drugs or vaccines for the current strain of Ebola virus. Early symptoms include fever, muscle pain, fatigue, headache, and sore throat, followed by vomiting, diarrhea, and bleeding. The WHO said there are now 8 lab-confirmed cases of the virus, with other suspected cases and deaths across 3 health zones, including Bunia, the capital of Ituri province, and the gold mining towns of Mongwalu and Rwampara. One case of the virus has been confirmed in the capital Kinshasa, believed to be in a patient returning from Ituri. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned there are currently significant uncertainties to the true number of infected persons and geographic spread of the outbreak. He added that the WHO is working with the Democratic Republic of Congo to bring this Ebola outbreak under control.
WHO will continue working to support the Democratic Republic of the Congo to bring this Ebola outbreak under control, and will deploy resources and work with and mobilize partners across the region to contain its spread and care for those affected. The outbreak is a reminder of the persistent threat to human health of disease outbreaks and the importance of cooperation and solidarity to continually strengthen global health security.
The WHO said the virus has now spread beyond Democratic Republic of Congo, with 2 confirmed cases reported in neighboring Uganda. Ugandan officials said a 59-year-old man who died on Thursday had tested positive. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi met his Iranian counterpart Iskandar Momeini in Tehran on Saturday as he reached Tehran for an official visit to facilitate stalled peace negotiations between the United States and Iran. Islamabad continues diplomatic efforts to help ease tensions surrounding the ongoing Iran-US conflict and disruptions linked to the Strait of Hormuz blockade. Iranian state media said the two discussed bilateral relations, including joint measures to facilitate border trade, transit, and the exchange of goods between the neighboring countries. In the meantime, Iran had said it will soon reveal its plan to manage traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, including the charging of tolls. While a fragile ceasefire announced on April the 8th remains in place, negotiations between Washington and Tehran have largely stalled following a first round of direct talks in Islamabad, with disputes over Iran's uranium enrichment program and regional security continuing to hamper the progress. Earlier, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi admitted that Pakistan-mediated diplomatic process remains in a difficult phase due to continued mistrust and strained relations with Washington, while expressing appreciation for countries including China willing to support the mediation efforts.
The mediation process by Pakistan has not been failed yet, but it is in a very difficult course, mostly because of the Americans' behavior and the mistrust which exists between us. We appreciate any country who has the ability to help, particularly China. China has been helpful in the past in the resumption of relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. We have very good relations with China. We are strategic partners to each other, and we know that Chinese have a good intention. So anything that can be done by them to help diplomacy would be welcomed by the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In other update from the Middle East, Israel continues its deadly attacks on southern Lebanon and says it has attacked 100 sites in 2 days after negotiators from the two countries agreed to extend a ceasefire for an additional 45 days. Mourners gathered to bid farewell to the bodies of Izzeddin al-Haddad, identified as the slain chief of the Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, and his family members who were killed in an overnight Israeli airstrike in Gaza City, according to local reports. The funeral procession drew large crowds as relatives and supporters attended the burial ceremony amid heightened tensions in the area. The strike, which reportedly targeted the residential area where the family was present, has intensified ongoing hostilities in the region. Local officials and eyewitnesses described the scenes of grief and destruction as emergency teams continued to assess the aftermath of the attack. The incident comes amid escalating violence and continued cross-border exchanges between Israeli forces and armed groups in Gaza. Sri Lanka has set a new Guinness World Record for the longest sensory board, an achievement made by the Treehouse International and the Merak Institute in Colombo. Dr. Anton James, director of the Treehouse International and founder of Merak 2026, has been traveling across Sri Lanka conducting community-based autism awareness programs. The initiative has reached parents, teachers, and community workers from the north to the south of the country with a special focus on underserved and hard-to-reach communities. The new record is linked to the creation of a structured and controlled environment for sensory exploration designed to help regulate and integrate sensory stimuli. Sensory boards are considered important in supporting individuals with autism by enhancing sensory processing skills, improving focus, and contributing to overall well-being. With the arrival of spring, Turkey's Somalik Plateau has become a popular destination for nature enthusiasts and photographers. Located at an altitude of approximately 2,500 meters at the foot of Munzur Mountains, the plateau captivates visitors with its natural beauty. Due to its difficult accessibility, it is often referred to as hidden paradise. Especially in spring, it draws attention with its colorful flowers, persistent snow cover, and streams. Following the sharing of images on social media, the plateau has become a favorite spot for both local and international nature lovers and photography enthusiasts. It also attracts campers, photographers, and documentary filmmakers. The plateau, home to a variety of flowers and endemic plant species, is also inhabited by many wild animals such as the protected horned mountain goats, wild goats, brown bears, wolves, and foxes. Thousands of monks and participants marched through the streets of the South Korean capital carrying colorful lanterns during the annual Lotus Lantern Festival honoring Lord Buddha's birthday. The illuminated procession featured traditional performances, temple groups, and cultural displays, drawing large crowds of residents and tourists who gathered along major city routes to witness the event. The festival is considered one of the most important Buddhist cultural celebrations in South Korea. Participants said the atmosphere reflected a deep sense of peace and community spirit, with lanterns symbolizing hope, wisdom, and enlightenment. Organizers noted that temples across the country took part in celebrations continuing centuries-old traditions linked to Korean Buddhism. The streets of Seoul were transformed into a vibrant sea of light as the Lotus Lantern Festival continued late into the evening, with thousands joining the procession in a shared display of devotion and cultural pride. Officials said the festival also plays an important role in promoting cultural tourism, attracting international visitors, and strengthening awareness of Korea's Buddhist heritage. Many attendees described the event as both spiritual and festive, saying it offered a rare moment of unity in the heart of the capital. Thousands of spectators lined the streets of downtown Los Angeles to watch the Red Bull soapbox race, where participants raced homemade gravity-powered vehicles down a steep urban course. The event featured creatively designed soapbox cars shaped like office desks, college mascots, metro buses, and other novelty-themed creations, with teams judged on speed, creativity, and overall performance. Participants navigated sharp turns, ramps, and obstacles as crowds cheered along the route. Organizers said the race attracted thousands of visitors and teams from across the region, turning major sections of the city center into a festival-style venue. Emergency and traffic management measures were also put in place as large crowds gathered for the one-day event. The Red Bull soapbox race, held in cities around the world, is known for combining amateur engineering with entertainment and costume performances, drawing strong public participation and tourism interest. The Sanza Matsuri festival, that heralds the arrival of summer in Tokyo of Japan, has reached its climax with a procession of portable shrines known as mikoshi through the historic Asakusa district.
People carrying 3 large shrines set out from Asakusa Shrine on Sunday, the final day of the 3-day event. They were headed in different directions. One of the shrines was paraded along the Nakamishi shopping street and passed through the iconic Kaminarimon gate, accompanied by the energetic chants of local parishioners. Crowds of spectators both from around Japan and abroad cheered and took photos of the procession. A man in his 50s who was one of the Mikoshi bearers said he has been taking part every year and this year is again impressed with the feverish atmosphere. Another participant, Refecture, said he has been traveling around the country to see various festivals and this is his first visit to the Sanza Matsuri. He said he feels overwhelmed by the powerful presence of the portable shrines. The Hanoi Department of Tourism has launched 8 new tourism routes in the Vietnamese capital aimed at promoting green and sustainable travel while preserving cultural heritage and traditional craft villages. Among the newly introduced products in the South Phang Long Hanoi Heritage Road, Journey to the Roots, Hanoi's first tourism route connecting the city center with heritage sites and traditional craft villages in the southern suburbs. The route includes destinations such as Quang Phu Khao, Incense Village, Pinda Communal House, and the Fengsha Weaving Village, where visitors can experience traditional incense making, silk weaving, and lotus silk production. Officials say the initiative is designed to balance tourism growth with environmental protection, cultural preservation, and community participation. According to Hanoi tourism authorities, the new routes are expected to provide visitors with deeper cultural experiences while supporting the long-term development of sustainable tourism in the capital. Bulgarian singer Dara has won the 70th edition of the Eurovision Song Contest, defeating competitors from 24 other countries to claim the title in one of the world's biggest live televised music events. Dara was not initially considered among the front-runners ahead the grand final, but her momentum grew rapidly during Eurovision as audiences and critics responded positively to her energetic stage presence and elaborate choreography. Her upbeat dance anthem, Bangaranga, became a crowd favorite with its catchy rhythm and visually striking performance helping secure strong support from both juries and viewers across Europe. The Bulgarian singer's victory marks a major achievement for Bulgaria on the Eurovision stage and sparked celebrations among fans following the announcement of the final results. The contest this year featured a mix of ballads, pop anthems, and experimental performances, attracting millions of viewers worldwide. Israel finished in second place after a closely contested vote, while several other favorites fell short despite strong expectations heading into the final. Organizers described the anniversary edition of Eurovision as one of the most competitive and widely watched contests in recent years, highlighting the event's continuing global popularity and cultural influence.
Welcome to the new episode of The Hinterlands on NTV World. This weekly show brings together stories from the hinterlands of Nepal, takes you beyond the cities and highways into the heart of Nepal's rural landscapes. I am Rosina Rai and we will be leading you into this journey every week. We begin in Bajura district, home to the stunning Badi Malika temple, increasingly known as the Switzerland of Nepal. Situated at an altitude of nearly 4,200 meters, Badi Malika is renowned for its vast green meadows, vibrant alpine flowers, and breathtaking views of the Api and the Saipal Himalayan ranges. The number of tourists and pilgrims visiting the famous religious destination has nearly doubled in recent times, with locals attributing the rise to increased publicity and improved exposure of the region. Diksha Awasthi brings us this report.
4,200 meters above sea level, Badi Malika in Bajura has recently emerged as one of far western Nepal's major religious and tourism destinations. The area gained wider attention after Prime Minister Balendra Shah compared Badi Malika to Switzerland during a public address. Since then, local guides and residents report a significant rise in visitor numbers. Local guide Norbahadur Raul says that where only a few travelers once visited, hundreds of pilgrims and tourists are now arriving almost every day. Badi Malika is known for its natural beauty, spiritual significance, and rich mythology. Major attractions include the scenic Triveni area, the 22 patans, colorful alpine flower fields, Vishnupani and Dharmadwar. Local legends linked to farming areas and religious history continue to attract visitors. The region is also home to rare wildlife such as the Himalayan monal, musk deer and daffy. Tourists are especially drawn to the breathtaking Himalayan views from the top of Badi Malika. On clear days, peaks such as Api and Saipal are clearly visible. Despite growing popularity, the region still lacks basic infrastructure. Poor trekking routes, limited drinking water, lack of toilets and shelters, and missing signboards continue to make travel difficult. Safety concerns also remain, with 2 deaths reported last year during the return journey from the pilgrimage route. Locals are urging the government to improve infrastructure and ensure safer travel.
Now to central Nepal, where an electric ropeway built over the Trisuli River, linking villages of Gorkha district and Dhading to the Prithvi Highway, has remained defunct for years. Its closure has made daily life increasingly difficult for local residents, affecting transportation and access to markets. Farmers are now compelled to manually carry vegetables and other agricultural products for hours, a task that once took less time through the operation of ropeway.
What happens when a journey that once took just 5 minutes suddenly takes nearly 3 hours? Unfortunately, this is the current reality of the locals of Gandaki rural municipalities, Hiklung, Thumka and Riplang villages that lie along the Gorkha-Dhading's border. A 620-meter-long electric ropeway was built over the local Trishuli River, which was built specifically to help the farmers in the region to supply their products. However, as the electric ropeway went out of operation within few days of its commencement, locals are once again forced to carry vegetables and daily essentials on their backs across steep trails. This has left locals disappointed, as ropeways serve as an important means of transporting goods and connecting remote communities to major highways and markets in Nepal, where roads and bridges are often limited owing to its mountainous terrain.
अब भर्खर सुरुमा अब के भयो त्यो दबाउने थिच्ने कुरा के बिग्रेछ हो अब त्यो अब मिस्त्रीहरु आइपुग्नु भएको छैन आइदा हेर विचार गर्दिनु भएको छैन अब राम्रै खरा त तार्नु पाएको छैन के अनि यस्तो यो ठामको यस्तो उसमा यस्तोमा त स्वतः जाने रहेछ नि त अहिलेको त त्यो लुत्किने भन्ने डर रहेछ नि त अहिलेको त फेरि एकदम गाह्रो नि
The electric ropeway was constructed after the old gravity ropeway connecting the villages to the Prithvi highway became dilapidated and unusable. But the ropeway remains shut since the past 5 years, leaving farmers struggling to transport agricultural produce to the market. With the ropeway out of service, locals say their woes have been added as the local roads connecting to the major roads and highways are also in dilapidated condition.
ओरालो बोकेर झार्नु पर्छ घुराहरूलाई फकाइ फकाइ लौनै बोक्नु पर्यो भन्दै ल्याउनु पर्यो यहाँ भए त तार्नलाई सजिलो हुन्थ्यो खै सजिलो भएको छैन हामीलाई बोक्नै परेछ
Farmers lament that the transportation difficulties are affecting their income and daily lives as well, while demanding the restoration of the electric bridges operation.
The government of Nepal spends billions every year on education. Yet the condition of community schools across the country continues to raise serious concerns. The recently published SEE 2082 results by the National Examination Board have brought hope in some areas while exposing alarming realities in others. Several community schools across the country recorded completely nil results, once again raising questions about the quality of public education in Nepal.
A huge gap can be seen between urban and remote areas in Nepal's latest secondary education examination or SEE results, especially in the community schools. While the pass rate is accessible and resource-rich areas like Kathmandu metropolitan city reached 76.75%, several community schools across the country recorded completely nil results, with not a single student passing the examinations. The SEE is the national examination taken by grade 10 students and is widely regarded as a gateway to higher secondary education. But the 2026 SEE results have once again reflected the fragile state of Nepal's public education system. Every year, the government allocates one of the largest portions of the national budget to education. In the current fiscal year alone, billions of rupees was allocated to the education sector. Despite this massive investment, the returns remain disappointing. Out of the 430,667 students who appeared in the examination this year, only 65.98% passed. In other words, nearly 34% of students were placed in the non-graded category. Locals say such a vast gap under the same curriculum and examination system raises serious questions about school management, teaching quality, and accountability.
शिक्षकहरूले विद्यार्थीहरूलाई यो खालको भाइब दिन नसक्नु भएर हो कि
लगभग 35% विद्यार्थी चाहिँ नि विद्यार्थी फेल भएको छ त्यो भनेको त राज्यको नोक्सानी हो
यो वास्तवमा सरकारी स्कुलको हकमा चाहिँ राज्यले लगानी धेरै गरेको छ तर यसको पछाडीको कारण चाहिँ के हो भन्दा मलाई लाग्छ भने यो शिक्षकहरू चाहिँ बढी राजनीति गर्नतिर लाग्ने
Some parents accuse teachers of being more involved in politics than academics, saying students are being neglected. Educationist Dr. Bidyanath Koirala says the poor results are linked to weak monitoring, lack of accountability, and declining focus on student learning outcomes.
यो केटाकेटीले साइन्समा पढेर पास गर्दैन भन्ने भएपछि त्यसलाई साइन्स अनिवार्य किन गर्ने हो त्यसको सट्टा उसले चाहिँ नि जे पढे नि हुन्छ उसलाई पौडी खेल्न मन लाग्यो पौडी पढ्छ सुदूरपश्चिमको केटाकेटी हो भने सुदूरपश्चिमकै बारेमा पढ्छ कर्णालीको केटाकेटी कर्णालीकै पढ्छ मधेसको केटाकेटी मधेसकै बारेमा पढ्छ मधेसको बारेमा पढ्यो भने त उ पास हुन्छ
Meanwhile, the National Examination Board has shown its efficiency by publishing the SEE results within just 29 days after the examinations ended. However, experts say faster publication alone is not enough if the quality of education itself continues to decline.
The government of Nepal, meanwhile, has intensified its nationwide campaign to reclaim public land. As part of the initiative, the District Administration Office in Sangja has directed all 11 local levels in the district to identify and to document public property. However, residents who have been living for decades along the Siddhartha Highway and on government land are now facing uncertainty and possible relocation. This is the last report we have in the Hinterlands episode this week. Government's campaign to bring government land and public property back under state control has spread fast across the country. Residents living illegally on government land and people residing along the Siddhartha Highway for decades are now facing relocation.
राजमार्गको दायाँ 25 मिटर भित्र चाहिँ व्यवसाय गरिरहेका व्यवसायहरू जहिले पनि त्रासमा मात्रै रहिरहे न त यहाँ ढुक्कसँग चाहिँ व्यवसाय गर्न पाए न चाहिँ अब यो चाहिँ अब छैन के भनेर चाहिँ ढुक्क भएर बस्न पाए त्यो एकदम दोधारमा जस्तो भइरहेको अवस्था छ त्यसो भएको हुनाले सरकारले गर्ने नै हो भने यसलाई चाहिँ छिटोभन्दा छिटो यसको चाहिँ निकास दियोस्.
As authorities move forward with the identification and demarcation of government land within the highway corridor, public interest and concerns have grown significantly. District Administration Office in Sangzai stated the lack of accurate records of government-owned land in the district has long created challenges in protecting public property.
रोड को सेन्टर देखि 25 मिटर दायाँ बायाँ भने हुनाले त्यसले गर्दाखेरि धेरै घरटहराहरू चाहिँ जाने अवस्था छ. त्यो मापदण्ड विपरीतका घरटहराहरू जाने अवस्था छ. यो पुतली बजार नगरपालिकाको पुतली बजारको क्षेत्र बाहेक अरु सबै त्यो मापदण्डमा पर्छ.
To address this issue, the administration has launched an intensive data collection campaign in coordination with all local bodies. Following the identification and documentation, authorities will begin removing illegal structures located within the highway areas. Preparations are underway to remove houses and temporary structures built within 25 meters on both sides of the highway. Residents living near the highway have demanded that the government clearly demarcated the land so that they would not have to live in the fear and uncertainty. Beyond the cities and the headlines, real lives continue to unfold. Stories shaped by struggle, strengthened by resilience, and carried forward by hope. This is the Hinterlands, and we'll be back next week with more stories from the heart of Nepal. Do follow us on our website nepaltelevision.com, social media handles and YouTube channels. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye for now.
Music, dance, food, art and devotion are the lifeblood of Newar culture, an ancient civilization rooted in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal. With lively festivals nearly every fortnight, the Newars celebrate life through a rich tapestry of traditions known as Jatra.
In the natural splendor, the silver-like peaks or the Himalayas glisten. Cradling a pond filled with milk in its lap, the Numbur Himal gleams. The Dudkunda, meaning a milk pond in Nepal's northeastern district of Solukhumbu, is truly the gateway to the paradise. The Numbur, Katang and Karyalung mountains seem to smile at all times. Adorned with a garland of colorful flowers, the Dudh Kunda is overflowing as if filled with milk. The very sight defines nature at its best. Feels as if the Numbur mountain is giving motherly affection, holding the lake in its lap. The beauty is so serene and virgin that one fears not to stain it by touching. Indeed, Dudh Kunda is nature at its purest form. Located at Solu Dudh Kunda municipality, Taksindu, the natural paradise draws many visitors. No matter how many words are spent describing it, they all feel inadequate upon reaching there. The name itself is fulfilling and equally sacred.
हजारौं नरनारीहरू चाहिँ तीर्थयात्रीहरू दुधकुण्डमा जानुभएको छ। म पनि पुगेर आएँ। दुधकुण्ड असाध्यै पवित्र स्थल यो हिमाल काखमा रहेको तीर्थस्थल हो, पुण्यस्थल हो, देवस्थल हो र त्यहाँ चाहिँ एकचोटि पुग्नै पर्दो रहेछ। त्यहाँ पुगेर जुन आनन्दको अनुभूति हुन्छ त्यो चाहिँ कहीँ पनि पाइँदैन भन्ने चाहिँ महसुस भयो।
आनन्द लाग्यो, भएन मस्त लाग्यो। अनि यो ठाउँमा चाहिँ आएर तपस्या गरेर बस्नु जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई।
एकदमै राम्रो लाग्यो हैन, प्रकृतिले दिएको रमणीय तीर्थस्थल हैन, जो कोही पनि एकचोटि चाहिँ यहाँ आएर एकचोटि भ्रमण गरेर दर्शन गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्यो।
Situated at an altitude of 4,531 meters above the sea level, Dudh Kunda is a sacred pilgrimage site of culture and nature. It feels like nature has blessed this place, and culturally, it has bound all castes and ethnicities in a thread of unity. There are various legends and sayings about Dudh Kunda. One argument is that the pond was formed during the creation of the Himalayas and was discovered by local sheep and yak herders. According to another legend, in ancient times, a yak would go to a stone where the pond is located and offer its milk every day. Later, the place was found to be a pond filled with milk, leading to its name, Dudh Kunda. This has also led to the belief that gods and goddesses reside here. There are 3 different routes to reach Dudh Kunda. One route is through Salleri, Faplu, Taksindu and Sasra Beni. Another route goes via Lukla, the gateway to the Everest, through Nunthala, Taksindu and Sahasra Beni. Nature has truly blessed the Solu Dudh Kunda municipality. Truly, just like the majestic Mount Everest, Dudh Kunda has the potential to be the destination for everyone in the days to come. It is a thread of unity among all castes and ethnicities. Just like the holy water of Dudh Kunda, it will become a pure and excellent destination.
and welcome to Business World. I am Siksha Bhattarai, your host for tonight. From escalating geopolitical tensions and rising fuel prices to climate-driven economic challenges and breakthroughs in futuristic technology, this week's global developments are continuing to reshape markets, industries and livelihoods across continents. Tonight we look at how conflicts in the Middle East are affecting energy and aviation sectors worldwide, while countries are turning into emergency financial measures to stabilize their economies, and how climate pressures are beginning to transform insurance and labor systems in Asia. We'll also take you from the blackout-hit streets of Cuba to the fishing communities of Indonesia, and finally into the future of robotics with a remarkable new machine unveiled in China. We begin tonight in Cuba, where an unprecedented energy shortages is pushing the country deeper into the crisis. Cuba says it has completely run out of diesel and fuel oil, triggering widespread blackouts, disruptions to hospitals and schools, and protests in parts of Havana. The crisis has worsened after fuel supplies from Venezuela and Mexico declined amid pressure linked to U.S. sanctions and tariff threats. Authorities say some areas are facing power cuts lasting more than 20 hours a day.
Cuba has completely run out of diesel and fuel oil, the country's energy minister Vicente de la Olavi had said. In an interview with state-run media, de la Olavi said there were limited amounts of gas available, but that Cuba's energy system was in a critical state as a U.S.-led blockade of oil to the country squeezed supply. Scattered protest against power cuts broke out in the capital Havana on Wednesday. The U.S. this week reiterated its offer of sending $100 million to the country in exchange of meaningful reforms to Cuba's communist system. Under the U.S. blockade, parts of Havana have been plunged into 20 to 22-hour blackout periods. Hospitals have been unable to function normally, while schools and government offices have been forced to close. Tourism and economic engine for Cuba has also been impacted. Cuba normally relies on Venezuela and Mexico to supply oil to its refinery system. However, the two countries have largely cut off supplies since U.S. President Donald Trump threatened tariffs on countries that send fuel to Cuba.
From Cuba's worsening fuel shortage, we move to the growing financial burden of conflict in the Middle East and its wider economic consequences. The Pentagon says the cost of the war with Iran has climbed to nearly $29 billion. The updated estimate has intensified debate in Washington over military spending and operational readiness as tensions continue to affect oil markets and global shipping routes.
The Pentagon says the cost of the war with Iran has risen to nearly $29 billion as scrutiny increases over its impact on U.S. military readiness. The updated figure was presented during a Defense Department budget hearing in Congress and is about $4 billion higher than an estimate given 2 weeks earlier. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said during the hearing that the department is proposing a $1.5 trillion budget and maintained that current munitions levels are sufficient for operational needs.
We're submitting a $1.5 trillion budget that will remake the department and ensure that every warfighter in the future has exactly what they need, and we're never in a fair fight. And I take issue with the characterization that munitions are depleted in a public forum. That's not true. And ultimately, we have all the munitions needed to execute what we need to execute, and we're going to ensure that we supercharge that going into the future.
And though geopolitical tensions are already creating turbulence across the aviation industry as well, global airlines are facing soaring fuel costs after disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz pushed energy prices sharply higher. Major airlines in the United States and Europe have raised fares and operational charges as fuel expense continue to surge. Industry experts warn prolonged instability in the region could further impact global travel and trade.
Global airlines are facing soaring fuel costs after military strikes by the United States and Israel on Iran disrupt shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, sending global energy prices sharply higher. Major U.S. passenger airlines spent more than $5 billion on jet fuel in March, a 56% jump from February and up 30.4% years on year, according to data released by the U.S. Department of Transportation. To alleviate pressure from soaring fuel costs, major U.S. airlines have raised airfares and baggage fees and introduced other cost-cutting measures. Fuel expenses now account for as much as 25% to 40% of the operating cost on some routes. The U.S. low-cost carrier Spirit Airlines, which ceased operations last Saturday, said the fuel price surge added $100 million in extra fuel cost in March and April. Several European airlines have also seen their operating costs surge due to rising energy prices. Lufthansa Group said on Wednesday that it expects its 2026 fuel cost to increase by €1.7 billion as Middle East tensions are driving up prices and the escalations in the Strait of Hormuz deepening market fears over supply shortages.
Meanwhile, in South Asia, Pakistan is seeking new financial options to stabilize its economy amid growing regional uncertainty. The country says it plans to access Chinese capital markets through its first yuan-denominated panda bond. Officials say the move is aimed at strengthening foreign reserves and reducing pressure on the economy as energy cost and regional instability continue to weigh heavily on the country.
Pakistan is expected to access Chinese capital markets for the first time through a yuan-dominated bond next week, according to Finance Minister Muhammad Aurangzeb. The $250 million issue, the first of a planned $1 billion program, will be backed by the Asian Development Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Aurangzeb said Pakistan's economy was showing signs of recovery, including rising exports and remittances, despite the war in Iran and closure of Strait of Hormuz, placing massive strain on the country, which relies heavily on imported fuel and gas. The finance minister's comments follow the release of about $1.32 billion in fresh funding by the International Monetary Fund from 2 loan disbursements under 2 ongoing programs. Aurangzeb said last month the government was weighing Eurobonds from other countries and commercial debt to replace a $3.5 billion facility from the United Arab Emirates and manage its foreign reserves.
And that development comes shortly after Islamabad secured another major funding package from the International Monetary Fund. The IMF has approved more than $1.2 billion in fresh funding for Pakistan under 2 support programs.
The International Monetary Fund Executive Board reached a staff-level agreement on Pakistan's loan program, unlocking $1.22 billion in fresh funding. The decision allows for an immediate disbursement of around $1.1 billion under the Extended Fund Facility and around $220 million under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility, according to the IMF. The approval comes as Pakistan continues efforts to stabilize its economy after facing high inflation, weakening foreign exchange reserves, and mounting debt pressures over the past 2 years. The South Asian nation has relied heavily on IMF support to avoid a balance of payments crisis and restore investor confidence. The IMF added that continued reform efforts would be critical to ensuring macroeconomic stability and sustainable growth.
From South Asia, we now turn to rising trade tensions between the United States and Europe. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened significantly higher tariffs on the European Union if trade levies are not reduced by July 4. The remarks have revived concern about a broader trade dispute between 2 of the world's largest economies and the possible impact on global markets. In Japan, concerns over long-term fiscal stability are also growing.
U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened much higher tariffs on the European Union by 4th of July if the bloc fails to drop its levies on the U.S. to zero. Trump said that after a phone call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, he had agreed to give her until the United States' 250th birthday, adding that otherwise tariffs would immediately be raised to much higher levels. However, von der Leyen said the bloc was making good progress progress toward tariff reduction ahead of Trump's deadline. Hours after the threat, a U.S. trade court ruled Trump's latest 10% global tariffs were not justified under U.S. trade law, which could allow future court challenges. A trade deal was struck by von der Leyen and Trump in July last year, but progress on enacting it stumbled on Wednesday after talks between EU lawmakers and governments ended without an agreement.
Across Europe, defense spending is also accelerating amid regional security concerns. Poland has become the first country to secure financing under the European Union's Safe Defense Programme. The nearly €44 billion package will support military modernization and boost domestic defense manufacturing as Europe increases security preparedness.
Poland has become the first country to sign a loan agreement under the European Union's Security Action for Europe or SAFE program, securing nearly €43.7 billion or $52 billion to modernize its military and defense industry. The SAFE scheme provides up to €150 billion in preferential loans for joint defense projects, weapons procurement, and critical infrastructure development as European nations increase spending in response to security threats from Russia and the risk of U.S. disengagement. Officials said around 89% of the contracts financed through the loan are expected to go to Polish companies, providing a major boost to the country's domestic defense manufacturing sector and the local industries.
Meanwhile, in Latin America, economic instability is reigniting debate over national currency reforms. Debate is intensifying in Venezuela over formally adopting the US dollar as the country continues to struggle with inflation and economic uncertainty.
Formal dollarization is once again emerging as a major topic in Venezuela's economic debate, fueled by persistent inflation and uncertainty surrounding the future of President Nicolas Maduro. The idea of officially replacing the bolivar with the US dollar has gained support among some opposition figures and business leaders, who argue that adopting the American currency could stabilize prices and restore confidence in the economy. Venezuela has already experienced years of de facto dollarization, with dollars widely used in daily transactions after hyperinflation eroded the value of the national currency. The move is set to help curb inflation and limit the government's ability to print money. However, it also pointed out it will strip Venezuela of control over monetary policy and leave the country dependent on decisions made by the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Turning now to climate-related economic challenges and the growing impact on livelihoods across Asia, India has introduced a climate risk insurance program designed to protect informal workers during extreme heat waves. The system automatically provides payouts when temperatures reach dangerous levels, allowing outdoor workers to suspend activities without losing income.
An innovative climate risk insurance scheme is helping informal workers in India protect their incomes as extreme heat increasingly disrupts economic activity across the country. Under the new insurance program, payouts are automatically made when temperatures hit a threshold, allowing workers to suspend outdoor activities without jeopardizing their finances. The scheme reflects a growing business response to climate-related economic risks, particularly in sectors dependent on informal labor and outdoor work. The initiative comes as rising temperatures and prolonged heat waves create mounting challenges for businesses, insurers and policymakers in India. Extreme heat has increasingly affected productivity, supply chains and workforce availability, prompting financial institutions and insurance providers to develop climate adaptation products aimed at vulnerable workers and small businesses. The scheme is seen as an emerging growth area for insurers seeking to expand coverage in climate-sensitive markets across Asia.
And in neighboring Indonesia, rising energy prices are threatening traditional fishing communities. Hundreds of fishermen in Indonesia have stopped going out to sea as soaring fuel prices make operations increasingly unaffordable.
Hundreds of fishermen in an Indonesian coastal town on the island of Java have been forced to stop going out to sea and are at risk of losing their livelihoods due to soaring fuel prices. The price of subsidized fuel has remained unchanged, but the cost of non-subsidized fuel, including industrial diesel, surged as high as 30,000 rupiah, about $1.73 per liter since last month, a steep increase from 14,000 to 23,000 rupiah before the hike. State-owned gas and oil company Pertamina said last month the price increase was necessary due to geopolitical conditions, referring to the Middle East war that has driven up the global oil prices. Local officials are reportedly assessing the impact of the price surge on fishing communities amid calls from fishermen's groups for additional subsidies or government assistance to prevent further economic hardship.
And in Turkey, unusual weather conditions are disrupting one of the country's most valuable agricultural products. Heavy snowfall in Turkey's Rize province has delayed the harvest of the world-famous Anzur honey. Producers say the disruption could affect both the timing and quantity of this year's production, raising concerns for local beekeepers and exporters.
Unexpected heavy snowfall in May has disrupted the traditional beekeeping cycle in Turkey's Rize province, leading to a projected delay in the harvest of the world-renowned Anzur honey. Typically, beekeepers transport their hives to the high-altitude Anzur plateau during the first week of May. However, harsh winter conditions persisting into spring have forced a change in plans. The delay is likely to affect the timing and volume of this year's harvest. The disruption could have financial implications for local beekeepers and suppliers, as Anzur honey, one of Turkey's most premium and sought-after honey varieties, commands high market prices domestically and internationally due to its limited production and unique floral composition.
Finally, tonight we take a look at futuristic innovation highlighting China's growing ambitions in advanced robotics. Chinese robotics company Unitree has unveiled a transformable robot suit capable of carrying a human operator while shifting into a four-legged walking machine.
Chinese robotics company Unitree unveiled a new piloted robot suit known as the GD-01. The transformable machine includes a cockpit designed for a human operator and can shift into a four-legged walking form. The unveiling highlights growing advances in robotics and human-machine mobility technology in China's tech sector. Images released by the company showed the robot moving on multiple limbs while carrying a pilot inside the central control compartment. Unitree is known internationally for developing humanoid and quadruped robots used in research, industrial, and demonstration projects.
And that's all for this edition of Business World. We will continue bringing you the latest international business, market and economic developments every week right here on Business World. I am Siksha Bhattrai. Thank you for watching.
Only after 6 decades of the institutional development of the now popular game of cricket did Nepal get the opportunity to play in the World Cup. Although cricket was introduced in Nepal during the Rana regime, the sport was confined to a limited number of people, namely the elite. It all started with equipment brought by students returning from their studies in Britain and India. Although Cricket Association of Nepal (CAN) was established in 1947, cricket remained centered among a few affluent individuals and in limited tournaments for a long time. Starting with the Vishnu Trophy in 1948, tournaments were limited to competitions like the Madan Memorial Sealed, Jugal Kishore Trophy, Rammani Trophy, and later the Jai Trophy. Even as the sport expanded outside Kathmandu Valley, it took decades for cricket to develop at the grassroots level. After the International Cricket Council (ICC) granted Nepal affiliate membership in 1988, Nepali cricket embarked on its international journey. The rule of mandatory participation in tournaments by the ICC and the Asian Cricket Council (ACC) opened doors to international competition for Nepal. After participating in the Under-19 Asian tournament in Hong Kong in 1996, Nepal has not looked back. Winning titles at the Asian and global levels, Nepali cricket team continues its journey towards the pinnacle of world cricket.
Goes down the ground because he was given that line outside off stump. So the first boundary of the contest, a handsome one.
Initially confined to Turikhel in Kathmandu, many international tournaments were hosted in Nepal after an international standard ground was built in Kirtipur. Nepal has also shown its proactiveness in differently abled cricket tournaments like the T20 World Cup for the blind in 2012 and the Asian Cricket Tournament for the deaf. Nepali women's national cricket team has also achieved remarkable success in a short period of time. The latest addition in Nepali cricket is the floodlit Tribhuvan University Cricket Stadium and the Nepal Premier League that has provided opportunity for Nepali players to rub shoulders with world-class players.
Digital divide in focus as World Telecommunication Day marked globally. Nepal pushes 4G expansion in remote Himalayan and rural regions. Nepal government moves to fast-track approval of 8 ordinances in Parliament, both upper and lower houses to review emergency legislative agenda. BP highway reconstruction accelerates after 2024 flood devastation. Japan-assisted project aims to transform route. WHO declares Ebola outbreak in DR Congo a global health emergency concern. Health officials warn of potential regional spread. Pakistan holds talks in Tehran amid renewed Iran-US diplomatic stalemate. Talks dwell on border trade and regional stability. And North Korean women footballers arrive in South Korea after 8-year gap. Asian Champions League clash set amid limited interaction. Good evening, I'm Bijata Bhandari and you're watching NTV World News Hour, coming to you live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now the news in detail. World Telecommunication and Information Society Day is being observed globally today, highlighting the role of internet and communication technology in social and economic development. The annual observance also marks the founding of the International Telecommunication Union and the signing of the first International Telegraph Convention in 1865, with a focus on reducing the digital divide. In Nepal, the government says it is expanding digital connectivity in remote mountainous regions, with Nepal Telecom recently launching 4G services in high-altitude areas, including Dolpa and Taplejung. Authorities say further expansion is planned near the Everest Base Camp and in other remote districts. Nepal's government is preparing to seek parliamentary approval for all 8 ordinances introduced earlier this year by presenting them in both houses of the federal parliament. The ordinances are scheduled to be tabled in the National Assembly on May 21st, while preparations are also underway to introduce them in the House of Representatives through an emergency agenda during the ongoing budget session. Parliament's legislative calendar, published by the Secretariat, also outlines key discussions ahead of the national budget announcement for fiscal year 2026-27 on May 29th, including debates on government policies, pending bills, and pre-budget priorities. Officials say Parliament sessions will continue through mid-June, with provisions for emergency discussions on major national issues if required. We will bring more on this in our segment Cover Story of the Day later in the bulletin. Meanwhile, the BP Highway, a major highway connecting eastern Nepal with the capital, is being rapidly rebuilt after severe floods and landslides in 2024 destroyed large sections of the route. Travelers along the highway between Thulikhel and Bardibas continue to face difficult conditions, including dust, mud and landslide risk, particularly as the monsoon season approaches. Officials say construction progress has reached around 30% in several sections, with engineers using modern slope stabilization and retaining wall systems to improve the safety. Full paving of the highway is scheduled for completion by 2027, although officials warn that land disputes and infrastructure delays could still affect the timeline. We will bring more on this in our segment Issue of the Day later in the bulletin. The World Health Organization has declared the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo a public health emergency of international concern amid fears of wider regional spread. Health officials say around 246 suspected cases and 80 deaths have been reported in the eastern Ituri province, although the outbreak has not yet been classified as a pandemic-level emergency. The WHO has warned that the actual scale of the infections could be significantly higher than the current figures indicate. The outbreak involves the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus, for which there are currently no approved vaccines or specific treatments. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi met Iranian Interior Minister Iskander Momeni in Tehran on Saturday as Islamabad continued efforts to help revive stalled negotiations between the United States and Iran. The talks come amid ongoing tensions linked to Iran's nuclear program and disruptions surrounding the strategically important Strait of Hormuz, a key global oil shipping route. According to Iranian state media, the two sides discussed bilateral cooperation, including border trade, transit, and the exchange of goods between the neighboring countries. Although a fragile ceasefire announced on April 8 remains in place, broader diplomatic progress between Washington and Tehran has slowed following an initial round of direct talks held in Islamabad. Now, the fourth edition of the Nepal Super League, or NSL, is set to kick off on September 5, marking a new chapter in Nepal's top-tier franchise football competition. Organizers have announced a revamped format for this season, introducing a home and away system to increase competitiveness and fan engagement across the country. The league will also expand its participation, with the number of teams expected to rise from the previous edition to between 10 and 12 clubs. Officials say the changes aim to strengthen the league's structure and improve the overall quality of domestic football. The NSL has quickly become Nepal's premier football tournament since its launch, attracting growing attention from fans and stakeholders. The BP Highway, a major highway connecting eastern Nepal with the capital, is being rapidly rebuilt after severe floods and landslides in 2024 destroyed large sections of the route. While full paving of the highway is scheduled for completion by 2027, the travelers along the highway continue to face difficult conditions, especially with the approaching monsoon season. We will take a closer look at this in our Issue of the Day segment after this break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. And now it's time for our Issue of the Day segment. Following the devastating floods and landslides of 2024, the BP Highway, a vital route linking eastern Nepal with the capital, has turned into a major cause of hardship and risk for both passengers and drivers. Travelers who endured severe dust during the winter and muddy conditions throughout the rainy season are now growing increasingly concerned with the monsoon season approaching. Here's a report.
The Dhulikhel-Bardibas road section, widely known as the BP Highway, once considered one of Nepal's most well-managed and scenic highways, the route has now become damaged, risky and difficult for travel. During the winter, travelers are forced to endure heavy dust, while the rainy season brings mud, landslide risks and challenging road conditions. Passengers and drivers traveling along the Dhulikhel-Bardibas corridor continue to face daily hardship and inconvenience.
बाटो त एकदम खत्तम छ अहिले चाँडो भन्दा चाँडो चाहिँ बाटो चाहिँ बनाउन सक्नु पर्यो जो भयो भने चाहिँ सक्दो नियममा चाहिँ चाँडो काम चाहिँ सफल पार्नु पर्यो यहाँको।
Travel has become especially dangerous along the Kurkot Nepal Thok section in Sinduli and the temporary diversion routes near Dhuli Hill, where road conditions remain highly unsafe. Despite the growing hardship faced by travelers, reconstruction work along the 25-kilometer Barkhe Khola Bhakunda Besi section has brought renewed hope. After floods swept away several parts of the highway, the damaged stretch was divided into 4 construction packages, and work is now underway to build a permanent double-lane road. The entire section has effectively transformed into a major construction site. Construction companies are currently handling 3 packages at an estimated cost of around 3.5 billion Nepali rupees, while the Japan International Cooperation Agency has begun work on the first package. Modern engineering techniques are being used to strengthen the road from its foundation to ensure long-term stability. Out of more than 1,100 micropiles, 62% of the work has already been completed, while cantilever wall construction has reached nearly 30% progress.
11 जोखिमयुक्त स्थानहरुमा कम्तीमा 2 लिफ्ट वाल चाहिँ निर्माण गरी माथिबाट यातायात सुचारू गर्ने उद्देश्य रहेको।
According to the agreement, full blacktopping of the road is targeted for completion by this year. However, to minimize travel disruption and ease difficulties during the monsoon season, contractors have been directed to upgrade the road to at least gravel standard before mid-July. Despite the directive, construction companies say completing the work within the stipulated time frame will remain a major challenge.
कुनै पनि हालतमा यो काम सम्पन्न गर्न सक्ने छैनौं यो विषयमा सरकारको ध्यान जाओस्।
Despite steady progress in reconstruction, several challenges continue to affect the project. Land-related disputes in areas such as Narke and Mangaltar remain unresolved, while delays in tree clearance and the relocation of electricity poles are also slowing the work. Officials say timely coordination among the government and concerned agencies will be crucial to prevent possible monsoon-related road blockages along the BP highway and ensure safer travel for thousands of passengers. April Agising Lama with local correspondent Anjir BK reporting for NTV World.
In this context, we asked the public what problems do they face while traveling along the BP highway. Let's have a look at what they say in today's Public Pulse.
बाटोको अवस्था धेरै जटिल छ के सर। हामीलाई आउँदा अहिले यस्तो व्यवस्थामा परेको छु। अब एउटा पानी ल्याउँदाखेरि 10 रुपैयाँ माग्छ रे बाटोमा 20 रुपैयाँ माग्छ खुल्ला पानी ल्याउँदाखेरि बुझ्नु भयो धेरै अप्ठ्यारो छ गुरुजीहरु झन् अप्ठ्यारो छ हाम्रो बालन सरकारले भन्नु सक्नुहुन्छ धेरैभन्दा धेरै अलिकति पहल गरिदिनु त्यो रोडलाई हामीलाई धेरै गाह्रो भइरहेछ गाडी बिग्रेपछि बास बस्नु पर्छ पैसा गोजीमा हुँदैन कहाँबाट तिर्नु समस्या सरकारले बुझिदिनु पर्यो नि
यो रोसी खोलाको माथिसम्म आउँदा हैन बाटो एकदम जर्जर अवस्थामा छ के सरकारले त खास ध्यान दिनुपर्ने हो तर अहिलेसम्म केही देखा छैन हैन बाटो जस्ताको त्यस्तै छ भर्खर कुन ठाउँमा मैले हेरे हैन त्यो डिपिसी गरेको अरु त केही देखिएन हैन अरु त केही देखे छैन मैले बाटो धेरै नराम्रै भन्दा हुन्छ के धेरै नराम्रो छ गाडीहरु धेरै अप्ठ्यारो पर्छ हामी आउँदाखेरि हामी त आउने हो हैन काठमाडौँ आउँदाखेरि धेरै शास्ति खेपेरै आउनु पर्छ हामीलाई
बीपी राजमार्गमा नेपाल थोकदेखि यहाँ भकुण्डो बिचमा आउनलाई त यति शास्ति छ मान्छेले धेरै दुःख पाएछ के यो सरकारको के गति हो यो 2 वर्ष भइसक्यो बाटो केही बन्ने केही चाटेगाट देख्दिन अहिलेसम्म केही पनि छैन बाटोमा आउँदा न मान्छे मजदुर खर्चेको केही पनि छैन भएको छैन के त्यही भएर सरकारले छिटोभन्दा छिटो सम्बन्धित निकायसम्म यो छिटोभन्दा छिटो पुर्याइदिनु तपाईहरु छिटोभन्दा छिटो बाटो बन्नु हामीलाई अप्ठ्यारो भयो अहिले भर्खर मेरो गाडी बिग्रेर यहाँ उकालोमा चढ्दाखेरि मेरो गाडीको पाइपै फुटी गयो अहिले न गाडी यता जान्छ न उता आउँछ के गर्ने हामी बिटे बाटो मालपत्र परिसकेको छ
यो रोसी लाग्नु भन्दा अगाडिदेखि पनि सानो छ बाटो हैन अप्ठ्यारो छ निकै कष्टदायक नै छ यात्रा अब के भन्छु अहिलेको आउनेले अब राम्ररी बनाइदियोस् छिटो बनाइदियोस् जनताले सहज रूपमा हामी जस्ता व्यक्तिले हिँड्न पाइयोस्
बाढी लगेको बाटो बन्दैछ हुँदैछ अब बालन सरकारले राम्रै गर्नुहुन्छ भन्ने आश छ हामीलाई हामीले त धेरै शास्ति खेलिरहेछौँ नि हाम्रो लुगाहरू कति ड्यामेज भइरहेछ हामीले धुलो दिनकै धुलो खाइरहेछौँ सडकहरू पनि अब छिटो बनाइदिनु पर्यो बर्खा लाग्न पर्यो हामी दिनकै आउने जानेहरूलाई नि शास्ति भइसक्यो अफिस जानेहरूलाई पसल आउनेहरूलाई पनि विद्यार्थीहरूलाई पनि धेरै शास्ति भइसक्यो हजुरहरूले छिटो भन्दा छिटो हाम्रो आवाज सुनिदिनु पर्यो सडक बनिदिनु पर्यो
चाँडो नबनाउँदाखेरि मान्छेको कस्तो असर पर्यो कति दुख तकलिफ पर्यो जनतालाई कस्तो शास्ति पर्यो यो छिटो तत्काल बनाइदिनु पर्यो
And that wraps up our Issue of the Day segment. Now on to the next segment. Nepal's parliament is set for a busy session, with the government moving to push 8 ordinances through both houses ahead of the new fiscal budget. As lawmakers prepare for key debates on policies, pending bills and emergency national issues, questions are growing over how smoothly the legislative agenda will move forward. We will look at this in detail in our cover story segment after the short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. And now it's time for our cover story segment. The Nepal government is preparing to obtain parliamentary approval for all 8 ordinances introduced earlier by presenting them in the upper house of the federal parliament. The ordinances are scheduled to be tabled during the meeting of the National Assembly on May 21st. At the same time, the government is also making preparations to present the ordinances in the lower house through an emergency agenda. Sabika Shrestha brings a report.
The 8 ordinances will be presented in the National Assembly meeting scheduled for May 21 for the endorsement. In the meantime, preparations are underway to present these ordinances in the budget session of the House of Representatives as well through an emergency agenda. The lower house is slated to start its session on May 18th, and the set agenda for May 18, 19 and 20 includes discussions and question-answer sessions on the government's policies and programs. It is planned to endorse these ordinances by May 21 first. On May 21, there is an agenda to present a proposal for consideration of the National Forensic Science Laboratory Establishment Bill 2081 as well as the Alternative Development Finance Mobilization Bill 2082. And on May 26, there is a schedule for clause-wise discussion on the Science Laboratory Bill. Similarly, in the House of Representatives meeting on May 27, the Economic Survey for the fiscal year 2026-27 will be presented. On the same day, there is also an agenda to present a proposal for consideration of the Film Bill 2081.
राष्ट्रिय सभाबाट यो बीचमा जुन 19औं र 20औं अधिवेशनबाट पारित भएका विधेयकहरूलाई पनि यही बीचमा समावेश गरेर अघि बढाउने छ र अध्यादेशको सवालमा चाहिँ अहिले कार्यतालिकामा प्रतिनिधि सभाले जुन पहिलो बैठकमा प्रस्तुत भएका जुन जति पनि अध्यादेशहरू छन् 8 वटा त्यसलाई कुन दिन त्यसलाई समावेश गर्ने भन्ने यो टुङ्गो गरेर चाहिँ अहिले कार्यतालिका प्रकाशन गरेको देखिदैन तर सदनको त्यो बिजनेसको लोड हेरेर र सम्बन्धित मन्त्रीसँग समन्वय गरेर यही बीचमा यो सायद 15 गते अगावै यो जुन अध्यादेशहरूलाई पनि टुङ्गोमा लग्ने छ.
The Parliament Secretariat has made public legislative work scheduled up to mid-June with the federal budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2026-27 set to be announced on May 29. As per the schedule, the Finance Minister is slated to present the annual revenue and expenditure estimates in a joint session of the Federal Parliament as constitutionally mandated. Parliament meetings before the budget announcement will focus on discussions related to pre-budget preparations, government policies, and pending legislative business. According to this published schedule, discussions on various topics of the upcoming fiscal year's budget will begin from June 1st. The 0 hour of Parliament has been kept intact for expressing views on contemporary issues. The Parliament Secretariat also has stated that emergency time may also be provided depending on the seriousness of the subject matter. Even if not included in the agenda, time will be provided if requested by the leader of the opposition parties, former Prime Minister and former speakers. Sabika Shrestha with camera person Dhurba Thapa reporting for NTV World.
And that concludes our cover story of the day. Now on to remaining updates. Nepal's Everest climbing season has seen historic achievements as renowned Sherpa guides and security personnel reached new milestones on the world's highest peak. Veteran climber Kami Rita Sherpa, known globally as the Everest Man, successfully completed his record 32nd ascent of Mount Everest, while fellow climber Lakpa Sherpa, the Mountain Queen, set a new women's record with her 11th summit. Authorities say the achievements highlight Nepal's long-standing dominance in high-altitude mountaineering and the critical role of Sherpa climbers in global expeditions. In a parallel milestone, 2 personnel from Nepal's armed police force also reached the summit, marking the first all-women APF team ascent and underscoring growing participation of security forces in mountaineering. Leaders, including the Prime Minister, have congratulated the climbers, praising their contribution to Nepal's international image and tourism sector. Officials also note that with 492 Everest permits issued this season, concerns over overcrowding and safety on the mountain continue to grow. Nepal's Division for Meteorology and Hydrology says the country is currently under the influence of western and local wind systems, affecting weather conditions across multiple regions. Rainfall has already been reported in parts of Gandaki, Bagmati and Koshi provinces. Forecasters warn of moderate rain accompanied by thunder and lightning in several hilly and mountainous areas, particularly in Koshi, Bagmati, Gandaki and Karnali provinces. Authorities have also cautioned that strong winds or gales may occur in the Tarai plains of Madhesh and Koshi provinces, urging residents to remain alert. Meanwhile, parts of Sudur Paschim and Lumbini provinces are expected to experience a rise in temperatures despite the unsettled weather elsewhere. The CPN, Unified Marxist-Leninist, one of Nepal's major political parties, today marked the 33rd Madan Ashrit Memorial Day with a program in Kathmandu. The annual observance honors 2 influential leaders of Nepal's communist movement, Madan Bhandari, the then party general secretary, and Jibraj Ashrit, who died in a jeep accident in 1993 when their vehicle fell into the Trishuli River in central Nepal. Party leaders and supporters gathered at the UML headquarters to pay tribute and reflect on their political legacy, which helped shape Nepal's modern multi-party democratic framework after the end of absolute monarchy. Senior leaders, including former President Bidya Devi Bhandari, attended the event along with top party officials. Speakers at the program called for renewed unity and self-reflection within the party, with leaders urging cadres to regain public trust and strengthen democratic values as Nepal's political landscape continues to evolve. Nepali Congress President Gagan Kumar Thapa has said he is ready to do everything possible within the party's statute to strengthen unity in the organization. Speaking at an interaction organized by the Democratic Thought Society in Kathmandu on Sunday, Thapa stressed the need to move forward by including leaders elected through the party's 14th General Convention. He added that efforts would be made to ensure the upcoming 15th General Convention is fair and impartial. Thapa also said that party decisions would not be influenced by whether leaders participated in the Special General Convention. His remarks come amid ongoing internal discussions within Nepal's largest democratic party on organizational unity and future leadership direction.
14औं महाधिवेशनबाट निर्वाचित हुनुभएको नेताहरूको ठूलो पंक्ति बाहिर छ। म के भनिरहेको छु 14औं महाधिवेशन निर्वाचित हुनुभएको जति नेताहरू अहिले हुनुहुन्न केन्द्रीय समिति भित्र म त्यो प्रत्येक नेता जो चाहनुहुन्छ म अहिलेको केन्द्रीय समिति भित्र ल्याएर मानका साथ वरिष्ठ नेता बनाउनु पर्नेलाई वरिष्ठ नेता जसलाई जे ठाउँमा राखेर म उहाँहरूसँगै लिएर सहभागी भएर काम गर्न चाहन्छु। मेरो प्रस्ताव हो। एक, दुई, अधिवेशनको तिथिमिति तय भएको छ। त्यो अधिवेशनको लागि पार्टीमा केही संरचनाहरू छन्। निर्वाचन समिति प्रेमबहादुर खड्काले नेतृत्व गर्नुहुन्छ। प्रेमबहादुर खड्काले नेतृत्व गर्नुभएको निर्वाचन समितिमा अरू को साथीहरू राख्दै गर्दाखेरि सबलाई फियर भयो भन्ने महसुस हुन्छ। आउनुहोस् बसौँ।
Nepal marked the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia 2026 with calls for greater equality, inclusion and respect for the sexual and gender minorities. The annual observance commemorates the decision by the World Health Organization to remove homosexuality from its list of mental disorders, recognizing it as a natural aspect of human diversity. The day is now observed globally to promote the rights and dignity of LGBTQ+ communities. The event, organized in Kathmandu by Mitini Nepal, brought together hundreds of advocates and supporters from across the country. Speaking at the program, Nepal's Minister for Women, Children and Senior Citizens, Sita Nepal Badi, said the government is committed to strengthening the rights and welfare of gender and sexual minorities through future policies and programs. She also urged society to treat LGBTQ+ individuals with respect and compassion rather than prejudice. Officials and human rights advocates at the event stressed the importance of enforcing laws against discrimination and ensuring equal treatment for the LGBTQ+ people in the society. Speakers noted that while Nepal has made progress in recognizing LGBTQ+ rights, many members of the community still face social challenges and discrimination. The program also featured the launch of a photo-based publication highlighting the experiences, struggles, identities and aspirations of LGBTQ+ individuals in Nepal. In other update, in Nepal's Humla district, residents say obtaining a national identity card has become a major financial and logistical burden rather than a simple administrative process. Thousands of people in the district's southern rural municipalities rely on the card to access banking services, social security payments, and other government services. Although many residents completed registration during a free government enrollment campaign last year, they still have not received their physical cards or identification numbers. To collect the documents, residents must travel to the district headquarters in Simkot, a journey that can require days of walking or costly transport through mountainous terrain. Locals say a round trip can cost up to 20,000 Nepali rupees, a significant expense in one of the country's most isolated regions. Elderly people, persons with disabilities and low-income families are reported to be the hardest hit, with many struggling to access essential public services without the identification cards. A special month in the Hindu lunar calendar known as Adhik Mas or the Purushottam month began in Nepal on Sunday, prompting religious observances and festivals across the country. The sacred period, which occurs roughly every 32 months to align the lunar and solar calendars, is considered highly significant in Hindu tradition and will continue until mid-June, according to Nepal's official calendar committee. A major religious fair has started at the Machenarayan temple on the outskirts of Kathmandu, where devotees are gathering for prayers, ritual bathing and religious recitations. The tradition of holding special worship ceremonies at the temple during Adhik Mas dates back to the Malla era, which ruled parts of Kathmandu Valley for centuries. Hindu devotees believe that visiting the temple, offering prayers to Lord Vishnu, and making charitable donations during this period brings spiritual merit and the fulfillment of wishes. Religious scholars describe Adhik Mas as a time for spiritual reflection, prayer, meditation, and fasting. However, major life events such as weddings, housewarming ceremonies, and new construction projects are traditionally avoided during the month as they are considered inauspicious under the Hindu customs. International news coming up next, but before that, a quick look at our headlines. Digital divide in focus as World Telecommunication Day marked globally. Nepal pushes 4G expansion in remote Himalayan and rural regions. Nepal government moves to fast-track approval of 8 ordinances in parliament, both upper and lower houses to review emergency legislative agenda. BP highway reconstruction accelerates after 2024 flood devastation. Japan-assisted project aims to transform the route. WHO declares Ebola outbreak in DR Congo a global health emergency concern. Health officials warn of potential regional spread. Pakistan holds talks in Tehran amid renewed Iran-US diplomatic stalemate. Talks dwell on border trade and regional stability. And North Korean women footballers arrive in South Korea after 8-year gap. Asian Champions League clash set amid limited interaction. As the Middle East conflict threatened to disrupt its growing economy, India is scrambling to salvage its sinking currency as surging oil prices linked to the escalating conflict. The Indian rupee has dropped more than 5% since the crisis erupted in February, extending losses seen throughout 2025 and making it Asia's worst performing major currency so far in 2026. The sharp rise in global crude prices has increased India's import bill, putting heavy pressure on foreign exchange reserves and fueling concerns over inflation, trade deficits, and economic stability. It is warned that prolonged tensions in the Middle East could further weaken the rupee, raise fuel and transportation costs, and complicate efforts by India's central bank to stabilize the economy while maintaining growth momentum. 3 people were killed overnight in a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack on the Moscow region, according to Russian officials. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said 12 people were injured in strikes on a city oil refinery. Russia's military said 556 drones were intercepted. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the strikes were an entirely justified response to deadly Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities. Earlier this week, a massive Russian drone and missile attack killed 24 people in Kyiv. The first widespread heavy rainfall China has experienced this year has triggered emergency responses across the country. The National Meteorological Center (NMC) said the heavy rain is set to intensify throughout Sunday. Level 4 flood control emergency responses were activated at 12 on Saturday for central China's Hubei province and the southwestern Chongqing municipality, while responses at the same level were maintained for the southern province of Guangdong and the southwestern province of Guizhou. Local authorities immediately launched emergency responses, including hazard inspections and road obstacle clearance. Swift responses were launched to clear debris and reopen roads, and traffic has started flowing again. A driver with a reported history of mental health problems struck pedestrians and cyclists in the northern Italian city of Modena, injuring 8 people, 4 of them seriously. It is reported a car speeding into the crowded city center street before hitting multiple people. Emergency services rushed to the scene and transported the injured to nearby hospitals for treatment. Police said the incident is under investigation and that the driver has been taken into custody. Officials are examining the circumstances leading up to the crash, including the suspect's medical background and possible intent. Humanoid robots dressed as Buddhist monks took part in the Lotus Lantern Festival in Seoul, joining thousands of participants in the annual celebrations honoring Lord Buddha's birthday. The robots, designed to resemble traditional monks, marched alongside human participants, carrying lanterns, blending modern technology with centuries-old cultural and religious traditions. Their appearance drew strong public curiosity and added a futuristic element to the otherwise traditional procession. The illuminated parade featured colorful lantern displays, temple groups, and cultural performances, with large crowds lining the streets to witness the spectacle. Attendees described the event as both symbolic and innovative, with a combination of human devotion and artificial intelligence, highlighting Korea's growing role in merging culture with technology. Dogs dressed in Japan and Argentina football shirts joined their owners on a runway in Singapore as sportswear brand Adidas unveiled its first ever pet apparel collection at the Fair Kids Fiesta event. The showcase featured pet models walking alongside the owners, wearing miniature versions of international football jerseys as part of a promotional campaign ahead of global football events. Organizers said the event aimed to highlight the growing trend of pet fashion and lifestyle branding. The event drew attention from pet lovers and industry watchers, blending entertainment, fashion marketing, and the expanding global pet accessories market into a single runway presentation. Business news coming up next. For now, a short breather.
Iran will soon unveil a professional mechanism on managing the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz along a designated route, a senior Iranian lawmaker said Saturday, without specifying the exact timing of the disclosure. Ibrahim Azizi, chairperson of the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, wrote on social media platform X that the route will remain closed to the operators of Project Freedom, a U.S. military operation aimed at guiding commercial vessels out of the strait. A ceasefire between the United States and Iran took effect on April 8, which was followed by talks between Iranian and U.S. delegations in Pakistan's Islamabad on April 11 and 12 that ended without an agreement. Later, the United States imposed its own blockade on the strait. China and the United States have agreed to expand agricultural trade through tariff reductions and tackle non-tariff barriers and market access issues, China's Commerce Ministry said on Saturday after this week's summit in Beijing. The agreements are preliminary and will be finalized as soon as possible, the ministry said following U.S. President Donald Trump's visit. China's farm imports from the U.S. still face an additional 10% levy after last year's rounds of tit-for tariffs sharply curtailed trade, which fell 65.7% year-on-year to US $8.4 billion in 2025, according to US Department of Agriculture data. The Commerce Ministry said both sides aim to promote two-way trade, including in agricultural products, through measures such as reciprocal tariff reductions across a range of goods. It did not specify which products. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Dutch Prime Minister Rob Jetten held delegation-level talks, agreeing to expand cooperation in key sectors including innovation, defense, sustainability, and investment. During the talks, Modi described the Netherlands as one of India's most important partners and highlighted growing economic and people-to-people ties between the two countries. Jetten said both countries could jointly advance ambitious innovation in water management, defense, renewable energy, and high-tech industries. The two leaders also witnessed the exchange of several memorandums of understanding aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation. South Korean Prime Minister has said his government will pursue all options, including emergency arbitration, to avoid a labor strike at the country's biggest employer, Samsung Electronics, and to minimize any damage if one does occur. The world's latest memory chip maker and its South Korean labor union will resume pay talks on Monday with a government mediator, in a move that could ease concerns over potentially disruptive strike at the tech giant that accounts for nearly a quarter quarter of the country's exports. Prime Minister Kim In-seok, after an emergency meeting with ministers on Sunday, said just 1 day of suspension at Samsung Electronics semiconductor factory is expected to incur direct losses of as much as $667.68 million. Samsung accounts for 22.8% of South Korea's exports and 26% of the domestic stock market, employing more than 120,000 people and working with 1,700 suppliers. Time now for sports update. The Cricket Association of Nepal has officially bid farewell to Nepal's national women's cricket team ahead of 2 major regional tournaments in Malaysia. The squad, led by Captain Indu Barma, will compete in the Asian Games qualifiers from May 23rd to 31st, followed by the ACC Women's Premier Cup from June 1st to 13th. Khan said the same squad will represent Nepal in both tournaments, with Pooja Mahato serving among the vice-captains alongside several senior players. The team also includes 4 reserve players as Nepal looks to strengthen its performance in international women's cricket competitions. North Korean women's football team landed in South Korea on Sunday, marking the first visit by a sports team from the isolated country to its southern neighbor in 8 years to play in the Asian Champions League semi-finals. Naegohyang Women's FC, which means my hometown in Korean, emerged from South Korea's Incheon International Airport near Seoul, surrounded by throngs of reporters and supporters holding welcome signs. A total of 39 North Korean players and staff dressed in identical dark jackets and skirts and wheeling pink suitcases were greeted by dozens of people from South Korean civic groups holding welcome signs. Naegohyang Women's FC, based in Pyongyang, will face Suwon FC Women in the semi-finals of the Women's Asian Champions League on Wednesday. Founded in 2012, the club won North Korea's top flight title in the 2021-22 season and defeated Suwon 3-0 during the tournament's group stage last year. Local reports said the North and South Korean teams would stay at the same hotel but use separate dining areas and travel routes, limiting direct interaction. North Korea are ranked 11th in the FIFA women's rankings, far ahead of their men's team, who are 118th. And now the weather updates, first from across Nepal and then the world.
And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Digital divide in focus as World Telecommunication Day marked globally. Nepal pushes 4G expansion in remote Himalayan and rural regions. Nepal government moves to fast-track approval of 8 ordinances in Parliament, both upper and lower houses to review emergency legislative agenda. BP highway reconstruction accelerates after 2024 flood devastation. Japan-assisted project aims to transform the route. WHO declares Ebola outbreak in DR Congo a global health emergency concern. Health officials warn of potential regional spread. Pakistan holds talks in Tehran amid renewed Iran-US diplomatic stalemate. Talks dwell on border trade and regional stability. And North Korean women footballers arrive in South Korea after 8-year gap. Asian Champions League clash set amid limited interaction. This is it for now. Meanwhile, do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Good night.